Try again.
Test one, sibilance, sibilance.
I hope we are.
Okay, you think we're good? Should we go?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Shoot, let me get my agenda. Hold on. Okay. All right. I will call this meeting to order. And even though this is a continuation, we still do a roll call, Matthew, is that right?
Yes.
You think I'd remember from time to time, but
Ready?
yeah.
Sarah Glenville.
Here.
Dennis Scholl.
Here.
Eddie Oakley.
Here.
Ed Stafford.
Here.
Russ Walker is absent this evening. We have our alternate Jane Kane sitting in. Jane?
Here.
Okay. Richard Newville.
Here.
Steve Monroe is absent right now. Kara Arena.
Here.
And Sherry Richmond.
Here.
And Rebecca Rabel.
Here. And we have,
And Steve is joining us now.
yes.
Madam, we have a full house.
All right, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, now I'm guessing with these microphones, we can mute them when we're not talking, or how's that go? Push the.
No, you can't, no, don't, please don't do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
I didn't know if people,
No, just keep them on, please.
okay. I didn't know if it would be too much noise for, like, when you're on a Zoom call and everyone's like, mute your microphone, mute your microphone. Okay, we need to approve the minutes. So if we could get a well, first, are there any changes needed to the minutes that anyone saw? Ed, you had a change?
No.
No, okay. So it looks like no one has any changes to the minutes. Do you want to make a motion, Ed?
Yeah, I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second. Richard Newbill seconded it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay, as we all know, this is the continuation of our public hearing for the rezoning request for 2221 Guilford College Road, 5300 Mackey Road, 2207 Guilford College Road, and 5303 Mackey Road for the consideration of the development under the PUD zoning classification. So I think we'll just pick up where we left off. I kind of wanted to see how you all felt. I feel like we've visited some topics quite a bit and we probably are ready to move on. And I know we still have to talk. It's probably going to be a significant conversation about architecture. I think that's where we left off last time. So we'll have that conversation and any other conversations. But my hope is that maybe we can start to, I know, oh, I'm sorry, could you remind me your name?
Oh, Jason.
Jason,
Yeah,
thank
no
you.
problem.
I know Jason started writing down our general recommendations at the last meeting. So my hope is that maybe, we can get to a point where we're making, getting our list of recommendations in order so that the developer can come back with anything that they have incorporated from our discussions, and we could see where we are, and then hopefully soon start a public comment period, is my thinking. Does that work for everyone or not? Or okay. Then we will open it up. Jason, I'll let you take the floor. I think, like I said, I think we left off on architectural stylings and details last time.
We did. Thank you, and glad to be back tonight. And can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, see nodding heads, that's good. Tonight we'll start on single-family residential architecture. I'm just going to kind of read through these, and then we'll go back and address them specifically related to this development. There are several things you look at when it comes to architecture. Obviously you can point to a picture and you may have some communities in mind that you've looked at, some examples of, what you think is a good representation of Jamestown and, some ideas on it, but let's kind of look through some of the basics. So if we start with development form, lot sizes, and that means the width, the depth, the shape, setbacks or build to lines. Those are things like, front yard, side, rear, front versus rear loaded garages. And that could be from the street or from an alley. Detached garages. So if it's detached, that would be front loaded with garage in the rear yard. Accessory structures, pools, decks, buildings, dwelling units, garage apartments, a whole variety of potential topics there. Driveways, Driveways can be separate, they can be shared. What type of materials? We're talking about concrete, pebble, gravel. I mean, there's a lot of options there. The depth of the driveway, how far away from the street is it? That's something to think about. And then solid waste management. How garbage is picked up and where depends a lot on the design of the community, whether or not it's from the street or perhaps an alley, et cetera. So that's kind of some of the things related to development form. And if you flip the page there, we have some specific architecture styling type issues. And these are the typical things that are looked at in relationship to architecture. And that would start off with cladding materials. So in other words, is the exterior of the building, is it brick? Is it wood? Is it fiberboard? Some other materials, stone, etc. Porches, yes or no? Does it have a porch? Maybe, maybe not. Depth, what's the depth of that porch? Is it usable? What's the width of it? Does it have a roof on it? There's lots of things to consider with porches. Windows, the location, size, and inset. When I say location, you could have a exterior facade that had no windows on it, for example. So some of the things to consider there are, windows all the way around on the majority, 3 sides. There's lots of options with a window location. Roof form, so that would be the pitch of the roof. It's kind of the one that usually, the orientation is the peak facing towards the street. Is it, horizontal, parallel with the streetway? There's lots of, overhangs. Are there overhangs with the roof line? Garage design, I think that one's pretty straightforward. Windows, no windows, 1 door, 2 doors. Building height, the number of stories, how tall is the structure going to be? The foundation, typically you're talking about slab, crawl space, does it have a basement? Mechanical and utility placement, where do you see where are those items going to go? The air conditioning units, things like that. Variety of architectural style. So is it going to be the same footprint, same house, every house, or is it going to be some variety in those houses in between the neighborhoods within the planned unit development? So that kind of covers some of the single family residential architecture topics. And as we move into this next slide, which is the townhome, you'll see some similarity, but there's some differences obviously. So we'll start with development form for townhome residential architecture. And typically you're going to see number of units, number of attached units. And we talked a little bit about that last week, or well, 2 weeks ago. It feels like it was last time we met. There was some discussion about the number of attached units. Building spacing. So you have these units, what type of separation is between those units. The width of a typical unit, what's your input on that? Setbacks, build 2 lines, very similar to the residential, single family residential. Garage and driveways, similar kind of discussion. However, with townhomes, a lot of times you'll see tucked under rear garages in addition to some of the other options. Courtyards, well, detached garages, same as a single family, rear loaded. Courtyards, roof decks, typically in a townhome development, there'll be some sort of, outdoor space related to the unit in addition to common space. Mews, and that may be something you may or may not be familiar with, but that's where you'd have a rear loaded development with green space in the frontage. So all the units would face a green space instead of a street. And so they would be served from the rear. There's a few of those around. I know there's one in Charlotte that we could get you some examples of if you wanted to see what that is. But it's just another way to potentially approach townhome development, the green space, and how it's serviced for solid waste management, which is a big consideration as well. And then finally, for the architecture part of our discussion, same, almost identical type of elements that you'll look at with the single family residential as far as cladding materials. What's the exterior, porches, do they have porches or not, decks, windows, same type of concerns, are you going to end up with a blank side that has, no windows, and just, you know, the exterior of the building. The roof form, similar to the residential single family as well. Building height, foundation type, a little bit, you know, potentially more of a concern with the mechanical and utility placement when you have lots of units that are together. You know, are those, how are those units going to be screened or not? You know, side, rear, potentially on the roof, which, you know, can sometimes be an issue as well. And then the variety, you know, you have the same concerns you would have with a single family type of a cookie cutter situation. Do you want to see variety in those units? So those are kind of the typical things we look at, but the purpose tonight is to go through this and see what your thoughts and concerns are about the development.
And Jason, I apologize before we do start that conversation. Matthew, I know you and I had talked, there were certain folks we wanted to hear more from. Do we know if any of those folks are coming tonight?
No, ma'am, I think we're going to ask them to come to our public comment.
Okay, okay,
We may have some more information to put in the packet next meeting.
okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get started with the development form. You've got the list there of typical things that are looked at related to that. You know, we just went over, and we'll just start. We can, however you want to go around the room, and we'll start. You want to start over here, Sherry? Do you have anything that stands out to you that's a particular concern you want to raise regarding the form of the development? We don't have to start with you. I'm just kidding. But go ahead. If you didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I follow directions easily.
Okay.
I think I made notes on everything as you were
Okay,
talking.
great.
And you had some great ideas you know, for variety, I think is mainly the thing, and quality materials
Okay.
too. You know, looking at quality materials, like having options of brick, stone, maybe some options of wood, if they use some vinyl, but to have maybe figure out if everybody feels comfortable maybe with saying that at least a portion or a fraction of a house has to have a quality material like a brick, stone, or wood, if not saying the whole thing has to be.
Okay.
But I'm willing to say, could we have a fraction of it, you know, a third or a fourth or something of one of the quality materials, preferably on the front. But, you know, for example, you could do brick around the bottom all the way around, you know, and be a fraction or some combination of that with stone or wood to have some variety. Porches, haven't thought too much about that. That's not on my radar for some reason.
Okay.
Windows, I know that some houses don't have windows on one side, but I would prefer that they have it on at least 3 sides. Because if you don't have windows on that one side, you could also have your utilities there. So you wouldn't be looking out on someone else's utilities. I mean, it could be,
Right.
you know, a space. That's just my thoughts.
Okay.
Roof, I'm not sure I just call for variety on that. Let me see what else. Building height, that's a good question for me. You know, we don't want it really high. It's just out of proportion, I think, to Jamestown.
Okay.
So I would look carefully at the height personally. That's important to me. And then slab, I think no slab, because I've heard some more stories from people expressing their opinions about this, that if there's a problem, it's a bigger problem than if there's a crawl space
Okay.
to get utilities or whatever it is fixed for that. So
Gotcha.
looking to the future, I would want these people to be comfortable in Jamestown and comfortable in their homes. If they had a problem, could they get it more easily solved if it's got a crawl space? And I have no requirements about a basement at all. And again, the mechanical utilities, wherever it is not really seen by people, of some kind of buffer of some
Right.
kind. And do you want me to continue, or do you want to give somebody else a chance?
Yeah, let's stop there.
Okay.
Let's see, when you talked about variety, you were talking about the quality of the materials and maybe being some variety with that, right?
I think many of us have talked about variety in a previous session too, and that could be the garage design. It could be several things, you know, if they had a variety of of house designs, but variety of including quality materials too.
Okay, well, let's start with the materials. Does anybody else have anything they want to add about materials and the quality, variety? Anybody?
Well, I really like there being a percentage of brick and stone mixed in. I know that woods and vinyls, designers can do a lot more artistic stuff with that. So they like the vinyl and the wood, but I like some of the quality of the brick and the stone. It adds a richness to it and a weight to it. So I just agree with her. I'd like to see a brick and stone included as much as possible, especially in the homes.
Does that make sense? Percentage okay, but like brick and stone
Yeah.
is the main.
Yeah.
See, any disagreement with that? Yes.
One of the issues that may come up if we're trying to create workforce housing would be affordability. And the more brick you use, the more stone you use, that sort of stuff that will drive up the price considerably. So if affordability is a concern, that may be an issue.
Okay. Does anybody else want to talk about affordability? Relationship to the materials?
I think that, depending on the actual building, having some level of vinyl isn't terrible. I know, I've heard a lot from people who don't want any vinyl. But, if you drive around Jamestown, especially in the original Forestdale, you see smaller homes with vinyl siding and it looks okay. I think that it really starts to be an eyesore when it's multi-story homes and you just have this giant wall of shiny vinyl. So I think that, if we could tie it to percentage or size of housing, I like Sherry's idea about, percentage of the home too. So I think there are ways to do it if it's a modest sized house. Again, I want quality building materials, but I could see it, you have more flexibility there rather than an enormous house covered in vinyl.
Let's see. So would it be fair to say concern about overuse of vinyl?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, I don't want to misinterpret.
yes.
But it certainly serves a useful, low maintenance purpose.
Sure.
So I wouldn't want to rule it out either.
And they've done Eddie, you and I both in business for 100 years between us, literally. And we've seen a huge variety of what can be done in vinyl. There's some vinyl out there that doesn't look like vinyl.
That's right.
But I guess for the purposes of our, what we're working on here, how can we write it in?
Yeah,
that
from
would
a
be,
design, I'm saying from a
are there
design
names
standpoint.
for higher level vinyl that we could use? So
I don't. The
And I-
instinct see what the architect would do.
And I think too, just when you think about Jamestown and when you drive around Jamestown, I think of brick sidewalks and I do think of a lot of brick exteriors on homes. So I think brick is really important.
I think that's a great connection too. It could even be a similar color or, to connect Jamestown to it. And as far as affordability and first home buyers, I think they want something unique too. So there can be another way to make it more affordable, but I think they may want a little brick. They may want a little stone.
Okay, what about, with foundation, concerns about slab? Is there any kind of, go ahead.
Well, in the old days when they used slabs, there was the fear if the plumbing breaks, if the plumbing leaks, we've got to cut the floor and get to it. So slabs got a bad name. But now with the restrictions that they put on it, the insulation that they have to put under the perimeter, the way they put the plumbing under there where they don't have any joints under the slab, the only joints are above, up out of the slab, that then, especially in townhomes and certain situations, it would be hard to rule out slabs because they're so much more sophisticated than they used to be. It's like vinyl had a bad connotation and slabs have a bad connotation. And of course, I much prefer crawl space in individual homes.
Yeah.
But there certainly is a place for slab in construction of a project as big as this, especially with some of the townhomes and so forth. You're talking about trying to have a little bit, hold down some affordability. Being able to put a slab rather than a crawl space could help some of the lower end homes or some of the multifamily townhomes could help save some money, but you can still put the money in the building products outside rather than a 3 foot or 4 foot crawl space underneath. That's what I was thinking.
What other thoughts about that?
Jane here. I lived in a townhome in Greensboro, Battle Forest Village, for almost 20 years before I moved to Jamestown. And I had my slab cut up twice. And Weaver Construction was the builder, very reputable company. And it was just horrible. And my floor was never the same. So I mean, I have firsthand experience on how bad that was. Now, if there's something that is different now, then, that's something maybe we ought to look at.
Yeah.
I guess again, the same question with Steve and the different vinyl. Is there different language that we can use to ensure that it's this other, type or way of building? Because I'm just afraid, if we have in there slab is good and vinyl is good, I don't want that to be misinterpreted. If we're thinking of, this one way of construction, but then somebody can use.
You would have to beat the code.
Yeah, the building codes have come up so high since 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Night day
Yeah.
difference.
So it is
Yeah.
Well, and I think the context of what we're talking about here is the appearance of the
Right.
structure. Building looks different, when it's on a slab, on grade versus
Crawl space.
crawl space. And I think that's the construction issue is going to be covered. Building code is going to make sure,
You're right.
that's done right. I think
Right.
the main thing here is, is it a design visual concern or not? I think is the way to look at it in relationship to that.
I mean, your single family, for instance, could be crawl, and the townhomes could be on slab.
I think that's excellent. Also, if we look at the age targeted area, we may rethink what we have for that too, because you want to smooth access. So that may be slab. I don't know how that works either.
You want fewer steps.
Fewer steps, but I
Zero
think single family with crawl space would make some of us feel better that we want a higher end too in this development. We want that too.
There's some new construction going on right now in the greater Jamestown area. And single family, detached, and they have slabs. And these are modest houses that are going for what? 250 to 300,000. And go back and see what they've done. It's unfortunate.
I think it would be really short-sightedness on our part if we try to eliminate slabs, because the standards are so strict today, they're going to put them in properly.
Period.
I feel comfortable with that. I'd go back to the variety. That's where you're going to get into your trouble. The variety of builders that come in, I don't know how many is designated, or it could be just one builder. But they're the ones that's going to control where the slabs should go, where the crawl spaces work the best in single family or townhome. I've never seen a townhome with a crawl space.
Yeah.
Maybe they are, but I've never seen one.
I've seen them with basement.
So I think if we go try to keep quality and the variety under control, that's our greatest concern.
And the biggest challenge for the builder, to Eddie's point, will be the grade that the building is going to be placed on, and depending on how much grading is done and the variation from the front of the lot to the back of the lot will have a lot to do. It's far more forgiving on on a crawl space than it is on slab.
This is going to be a silly question, and I'm not saying it's something that needs to be considered necessarily for this project. Are basements not built anymore, or? No?
Few and far between.
What's that?
I would say few and far between in North
Why?
Few and
Carolina.
far between.
Why?
I have a basement.
I was just curious.
I had a townhouse with a basement,
Yeah.
which is,
I have
you
a
know,
basement.
not a crawl space.
Well,
It was a full.
I was just wondering if,
Basements
are
still built, yes.
okay, I was just going, I don't know what the plan is at this point, in terms of mixture of housing, like I know we don't want to compare this to Adams Farm, but Adams Farm has a real mixture of very affordable housing with very high-end housing. And so I didn't know if, some high-end housing would have basements to it, maybe some intermediate has the crawl space, maybe some of the more affordable has the slab. I don't know if that's something to think about or whatnot, but it's nothing that we have to decide as a planning board. It's just something that I thought of. I guess I really like basements, so it just surprises me that no one talks about basements, but.
I think typically in North Carolina, because of our soil that
Mhm.
has a lot of clay in it and doesn't drain well,
Yeah.
the builders tried not to put a basement just to have a basement. You do it where the ground is sloped enough, you have one that comes out on the daylight. You can have windows in it and also drain around it, because just to scoop them out in the ground, all four sides be buried, it's really hard to keep them dry in North Carolina. So that's why you typically only do it when the topography favors it.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is a place, but that's good to know. I mean, I know I have a basement in my current house and love having
I love a
basements,
basement.
so, yeah.
Well, they may
It would
have-
definitely be something I would be looking for if I were purchasing a home.
Well, they may end up, we've seen preliminary plot designs, plats. They may end up, Eddie, with some dog lots that drop off. If so, that would be a handmade.
That's right.
basements. Yeah.
And until the whole site gets together and they start putting it on the ground, it would be hard to really project.
As if these guys would ever want any dog lots.
Anyway,
Well, let me summarize where we're at on that one, just to see if we're on the same page. So I think what I heard, as far as materials go, you would like to see, some focus on brick and stone. But it would be, especially the brick because of the connection to Jamestown. High quality of materials, but maybe it'd be okay for a percentage of those materials not to be brick and stone. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay.
Just one question. Is that
Yeah.
supposed to be on every house?
That's my question too.
The reason I say is because I live in a house that's all vinyl and I think it's quite attractive.
it is quite attractive. I've been to his house before.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, and I would argue that we could have some houses that are all brick too, so.
I mean, I understand the idea of of half the facade being brick or stone if people like that. I don't think we need to make that necessary.
Right,
Do
right.
we?
Well, I don't know. Part of what I'm envisioning when people say vinyl that's not attractive like your house is when you have like three sides that is one thing and then just a whole back that is vinyl. But I don't know if that's what other people are thinking when they say that. But yeah, no, I agree. There can be homes that are entirely vinyl or hardy board or whatnot, and they're attractive.
I mean, I think, again, the things that I've been hearing from people point to building that's currently going on in town or right outside of town, that is entirely vinyl, and they say that's absolutely not what we want here. That is completely, different from everything else in Jamestown. And, I think it is because you're looking at a very large house, which is just large expanses of vinyl, and it's not the nicer looking kind of vinyl. So we know that they are, things are being built right now around Jamestown using vinyl that is really unattractive. So, I'd prefer to err more on the, having some percentage brick and stone, or if there's a way to make the language such that it's not just, okay, use vinyl wherever you want, and that can be, every house can be largely vinyl.
Maybe it would be a certain percentage of the whole development is vinyl, is
Not
brick,
each house,
is
yeah.
whatever, I don't know.
That would add some variety if we had at least a percentage, a third of it or a fourth of it.
In
that it
each
has to be
neighborhood.
Right,
Yeah.
Even
in each
the
neighborhood.
lower, the affordability, because I'm all for affordability, but I want those people to be happy in a house too. And I want it to have something special about it too for them.
I think though too, this is just my own personal opinion, and I'm going to be real honest. I'm very concerned about anything that will be seen from the street. But for me personally, and this is just my personal opinion, is anything in the interior that I won't be able to see passing it on the street. I don't really care what it looks like. If someone wants to live in an ugly house, that's up to them. But I think even when you, sometimes when you combine the stone and the vinyl or the brick or the wood or whatever, it ends up looking, I call the architectural style recession blah. It just has no, stone doesn't automatically add character and brick doesn't automatically add character. They still end up looking cookie cutter. They just happen to have stone on them, and to me, they're still unattractive. Again, if it's not on the street, I don't really care if someone wants to live in a house like that, but I'm just throwing it out there that just adding stone to something doesn't make it all of a sudden attractive.
Some of the houses they say stone has about 3 foot in the front that'll cover.
So I heard several different things. One thing, so I think this was talking about each structure having a percentage of materials on it. But what I just heard was maybe some houses in the neighborhood are all vinyl, maybe some are all brick.
That's the variety.
Well, and I'm thinking too, to Rebecca, your point too, and again, I don't really care personally, but like you said, like for instance, in Forestdale, original Forestdale, it's the smaller houses that are vinyl that have been done very well. So, it's the single stories ones that, look good. I mean, Dennis's house is two stories?
2 story. Well,
Or 3.
2.5.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it is also very attractive, but maybe if you want to narrow it down to like the single story homes or something like that, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Maybe the developer can give us some pictures of things with a variety of high quality materials, some designs, and that might be helpful to us to say, we like this addition of brick here or stone here, but not a whole vinyl village. I mean, that's what I think some of the residents are concerned about.
Well, I think that's a solid variety. Like to see some brick and stone, quality materials, but maybe number 2 is concerns about overuse of vinyl.
Yeah.
So maybe those are the 2 main points to pass along. That makes sense? Okay. And then slabs, let's go back to that. It sounded to me like you ended up not as concerned about that, but based it more on, the type of development, the site, whether or not it's townhome, or you seem to want to leave that didn't seem to be as big a concern. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Not as much a concern. All right. And buffering of mechanical equipment, is that something that's, and when I say buffering, that could be landscaping, it could be using, some kind of decorative little fence or something, or if it's on the roof, I guess hiding it behind the pitch of the roof or something like that. So but we don't need to be that specific. You're just okay with buffering.
Right.
Okay. All right. And then I guess affordability is just kind of we'll just leave that as an open. I think we're kind of building that into where we're headed with that. All right. So looking at architecture, it looks like we didn't really talk about porches. Is that something that's a concern?
I think houses with porches have a lot of character. Now, some
Yes.
people may not want them. I have one. I love my porch. And it's brick and then, wood on the porch, but it's, I think that most people like to sit on their front porches or their back porches. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be all of them, but I think that it should be considered and, have some of them anyway.
Okay. What other thoughts about porch?
I was just gonna say that with the illustrative single families, they had some kind of porch on almost each one. Some just a very minimal porch, some medium size and some bigger. So I like where they're going with incorporating a lot of porches because they do give character to the exterior of a home.
I know it's not, again, it's neither here nor there, but I noticed the porches in the renderings, none of them are raised. So I assume these are all slabs then?
Probably. That's what it looks like. There might be one or two that aren't.
I think going back to slab, I still would prefer the house to be to have a crawl space. It just looks so flat on the land to me visually for a house too. But the porches add depth, even a small house, if it has a porch, visually it has depth. Also, it's a place where the kids could gather, the family could gather. If they don't have a large yard, that porch is an extension of the yard.
So I hear a lot of people that like porches. Is that something you want to make mandatory that there, or is that something you just want to encourage, or how do you, what's your thought?
Well, the developer, for their senior sensitive housing, for the maturing population that's here, probably will have a porch on every single one. Reason for that is if they move there and they age in place, then they move more slowly. And when you have frequent downpours, which we have here, a porch is a godsend.
Absolutely. I will say even for, if homes don't have porches, then having a portico over the door. I just know a friend of mine who lives in Adams Farm who finally installed one at her own home because every time packages were delivered in the rain, they would just get soaking wet. So.
So would it be fair to say something along the lines of strongly like porches, some sort of covering, portico? Is that?
Yeah, entrance and exit, yeah.
So porch / and/or covered entrance? Okay.
Well, on page 20, the designs, I think all but one have a porch of the 6, right?
Yeah.
No, 2 don't. 1, 2, 3.
Well, there's an indented,
They have an
It's
intention.
indented,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Covered entrance.
that's sort of like the portico, so when your neighbors come to see you, they don't have to stand in the rain while
rain.
you're getting to the door.
Yes.
And the Amazon drivers will appreciate that.
That's probably the only person gonna come see us now.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Well, if you flip back a page to the development form, which talks about lot sizes, setbacks, type of garages, driveways, what are some of your thoughts about some of those topics?
I think lot sizes is an important topic. I think we've talked a little bit about this and how there is a variety of lot sizes within Jamestown. I think we'd like to see that continue in this development.
Variety of lot sizes?
Yeah, maybe not necessarily within neighborhoods, but maybe each neighborhood.
At least
could
from
have
neighborhood to neighborhood.
Exactly. And maybe setting some minimum lot size. I don't know what that is, but potentially coming up with a minimum lot size.
Okay. So I heard variety of lot sizes, but is that neighborhood to neighborhood or?
Yeah, neighborhood to neighborhood.
Okay.
The lot size certainly affects the density that we've bent talking
Yes.
about and the impact on the town.
Okay.
I don't know if you all got a chance to look at I think it was a link that Lynn Montgomery sent out about planned neighborhood in Indiana, I believe it was. And, but if you haven't looked at it, I strongly encourage you to look at it. It was a beautiful neighborhood. It looked very, very well done. And one thing I noted was it was, I would say 250 to 300 acres larger, but had half the number of units on it that is proposed for this. And so they certainly have larger lot sizes there. So if you want to check it out, I encourage you because it was really a nicely done neighborhood.
Well, this COVID has certainly given us an opportunity to think about lot sizes too, because when your children can't go off the property for a while, you need some space. And I know that this plan has for community spaces, but I think we need to be realistic and let the people have space to put up a bird feeder, to do something, throw a ball in the back. This S1 single family product, I don't know. I think some of these are very small lot sizes. And I like Sarah's idea of really reducing density. So that would affect our looking at lot sizes.
However, I would think, I don't know, I haven't reached it yet, but I would think the age targeted homes may want smaller lot sizes because they're lower maintenance.
Yeah.
Like you said, probably enough to have like a garden or a bird feeder or something, but not have to have a lot of maintenance and mowing and all that to
You
it.
don't need a volleyball court.
Right, that's right. Your beach volleyball court in the backyard, yeah.
So it's safe to say there's some concern about the S1 too small or,
Yes.
And S2, I would say.
okay.
Pretty small.
Is that something that, what if there was some variety, some smaller, some larger? What if some of the lots were that size, but some were larger? Does that get the variety or not?
I think this still ties into density. And lot size could be bigger.
Yeah. Well, part of that's going to be driven, Eddie and I have already talked about it, about the topography.
Right.
If not, the developer is going to spend a ton of money making everything flat, and that's not realistic.
That's right.
All right, so we'll put consider topography.
Yeah, that may drive some of those.
Right. Okay. Any more specific discussion about lot size?
I would hope that the townhomes would be large enough to have a double car garage rather than a single garage.
Hold that thought. Let's come back to townhomes and let's finish up single family, but keep that thought about the townhomes.
Excuse me. But if we're concerned about density, those lot sizes of single families need to be larger.
Okay.
Absolutely, because you're gonna have to cut down on the number of homes, or you're gonna have a mess.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I'm also looking, I don't know, I'm not good at visualizing without seeing it concretely, like distance and such. But the setbacks, it looks like from the sidewalk to the garage for these single family is 20 feet. And maybe that's great. I don't know, but just something to think about too. And it goes in with lot size because it looks like they can't really push back any further. I don't know if that's a situation where you're going to have one car. Now, obviously one car is not 20 feet, but and blocking the sidewalk like they do on Ganaway Street. So, but that's in the townhomes at Ganaway Street. But lot size would certainly, a larger lot size would certainly help with that issue.
Yeah, I think
Okay, so there's concern about the setbacks being too small.
Well, if you look at 15 feet, and a guy is 6 feet, that's not even 3 guys down here. Right? Take him and put him down here 3 times, and he's more than what you would get.
Yeah, it's barely a side yard. It's really not.
Be an easy yard to mow. It would. There's some days I'd like my yard to be that small.
So again, some of the lots that might be an appropriate use of space, but
So,
I'll tell you what, my house and another house are the minimum setbacks, and it is tight side to side. So, yeah, doing the minimum is not necessarily appealing.
And I would also argue, so we can see that the front yard setbacks for all of these vary between 18 and 22 feet, but 4 feet is shorter than I am, and I'm pretty short. So I would, if we're going to talk about a variance in front yard setback, I would encourage that to be bigger as well. I think I submitted some photos a couple of weeks ago. There's one particular set of houses in Wellington where there's a house that's really far back, and then its neighboring house is quite a ways up. And I don't know that there needs to be that much variance, especially across the whole development. But maybe more than 4 feet of variance, something noticeable. Because I think the argument was that way when you're walking down the street, they aren't all lined up in the same spot. 4 feet, you won't notice a difference. So, I don't think it needs to be 50 feet or 30 feet or 20 feet necessarily, but I would argue more than 4 feet.
between off the side,
From the varying front yard setbacks, so they
that
aren't all lined up in a
staggered,
row.
right?
Yeah, so they're staggered a little bit,
I was
exactly.
trying to zoom in to read.
Staggered more than
You're
4
talking
feet.
about the
Correct.
front yard setback.
Yes.
That's not enough variation?
I would say that it's probably, you probably wouldn't notice 4 feet.
Do you want to notice it?
Maybe to add some variety. I don't think it needs to be like the houses that I'm talking about in particular in Wellington, where it's probably like 30 feet of variance, but maybe more than 4 feet to help with that staggering. And so you're not just seeing the same sort of row of houses when you're driving or walking down the street.
Particularly if you have, I call them garage houses, where basically the whole house looks like a garage, and then basically the living area is behind the garage. But what's that?
We'll talk about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's on the list.
Yeah, but anyway, but if you just have a bunch of those houses, staggering looks better than a line of garages that you're looking down.
And I don't think we want it to be too big of a variance either, because if your
Right,
house is behind your neighbor's house, then you don't necessarily want to see your
I
neighbor's
think most of
house
us want the lot sizes to be bigger, and maybe it would vary with some of them that are considered more affordable, but move up and have a lot more. I think that we need more land for these people. We're looking at their future too.
Right. So let's talk about garages, front. So you've got illustrations there. I think most of the ones in the packet pretty much all showed front loaded, garages attached to the house.
And I should say, I'm not like opposed to a front loading garage. It's when the garage looks like the whole house, like that you see a garage and a front door, and then you don't see the house. That's what I call a garage house.
All right. So are these examples of that, or?
What's that?
That's more townhouse.
Yeah, but I see a lot of single family homes like that too.
Yeah.
That's part of the recession blah architectural style.
So how do you feel about what's presented in here? Is that what you're looking for, or something different?
Most of the garages in my neighborhood are front. Now, some of them are side, but they are in their own space next, on the right side or the left side of the home. And then the home is very distinguishable at that point. And I think that, to me, looks better, but that's just, my personal opinion. That way you know that the garage is over here, got your driveway, and then you just go into the kitchen or to the laundry room, or however you get in. And I never go through my front door anymore. It's just, it just looks better if it's distinguishable, I think. I mean, I see units, especially in townhomes, which have windows above the garage, and they may have a utility room or a special room. But I know my neighbor across the street, she has a big, basically, her son slept in there. They had, they had their playroom and everything.
Gotcha.
But the windows were not on the front. They were on one end and then the back.
Gotcha. So are these illustrations in the packet what you're talking about? I think, let's see.
On page 20?
Page
Well,
20.
They have stuff on top of them, basically. I mean, to me, they are just totally part of the house and not distinguishable. I mean, you can tell from the front that it is a garage,
Right.
but, mine is very distinguishable. You can tell that it's a garage and there's nothing above it. And I like, I think it looks better. Some of these look awkward to me in here. The garage is big and then the house looks small in the front.
I do think some
I agree
people
with
do
her
like
when you
a
look-
great room over the garage,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Percentage of the front of it, you've got a lot of white garage
Yeah,
and versus the house. So are you buying a house or are you buying a garage house? I mean, when you look at it from the front.
Was that-
More land around it would help a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it would.
Well, and honestly,
Yeah.
these homes that are in this illustration and looking at these lots, the way they're laid out, I don't think you could have these homes on these lots. You could see it's basically the driveway into the garage and there's a little tiny, which would be the front door. I don't think you could do these homes on these lot sizes. Because these are front to back houses and these are side to side houses in the illustration. I don't know, that's an official term, front to back houses and side to side houses.
Hey, I think everybody understood.
Well, I think we've also talked about, does every house need to have a garage? I think we've talked about carports potentially, and that might be a terrible idea, so somebody else, feel free to.
Well, I think,
Keep that down.
again, in driving around town, if one of our concerns has been this, we want this to look somewhat like Jamestown. If you look at the existing homes in Jamestown, they were laid out in a way to kind of hide the garage. So you either, go down the driveway and have to turn in, or maybe there's a carport that's set back. And, in some of the older neighborhoods there aren't garages, but this is definitely, I think just looking at these pictures as homes, yeah, they look fine to me. And I think the porch has a lot to do with that evens it up. But if we want this to carry some of the character of the town, of the homes that are already in town, this does not look like anything in Jamestown. So, I guess it's two separate questions. Are these, nice and attractive homes versus is it really a good fit for our town?
Yeah, I personally, like I said, I'm concerned about anything that will be seen by the street, which I'm hoping is nothing. But if anything is seen by the street, I would want to see those have side loading garages or back loading garages. So that they're kind of hidden away instead of just a big, huge front garage.
Although if we're thinking about like backloading garages, probably not on the outer edges of the development, 'cause isn't that what you would see then from?
No, well, it's because I don't want to see the back of the house. I think the front of the house should face the street, not the, should face Guilford College or Mackey. I don't think the back of the house should face that. If you see it, if you don't see it, then it shouldn't really matter. But I've been paying attention a lot to subdivisions and the buffering and all that. And two-story homes, I'm finding, is near impossible to buffer those things. You definitely see those roofs, even when there's, what was it called, Dennis, that you talked about, the berm? Yeah.
Go over to Kendale off
Okay.
of Ski Club.
Yeah,
There's a development there a friend of mine used to live in. It's more mature, the growth on,
Yeah.
vegetation on top of the hill.
yeah,
And the hill's about 6 feet high.
okay.
You can't see the two-story homes from the road.
Okay, I'll check that out.
So I walked across
A
the
lot of them
street.
have it on Ski Club because I've been having to drive that route a lot for my kids' baseball. And there are a lot of homes there that the back is facing and there is the buff, even with trying to buffer, you see.
No, that's different.
those
That's all
roofs and
older.
those second stories. So again, it depends on how the buffering's done.
If
I
the
think it comes
buffering's done
back.
right, it really doesn't matter what's inside. You won't see it.
If we went back to density, and we are going to have to talk about that throughout, and we have larger lot sizes, and if we even look at square footage, to have so many of them with a more square foot, that may improve the width of the front too. And then think about a variety, some of those with the garage in front, and maybe some percentage with the higher end homes. Let's have a side garage so that we have some higher ends that match more of Jamestown, where we have a lot of side garages or none. And I think it's one development. I don't know if it's Eagle over there by Lowe's. Eagle,
Or Lowe's Foods or Lowe's Hardware?
Gotta be Lowe's Food.
what's the name of that
Hardware's too
street?
far away.
I can't think of the name of it right now, but I think they have all the parking in the back. It's townhomes, the townhomes over there. And it's, anyway, I've seen them, and it says parking in the back. So that's an option too, for even the townhomes. If you have higher end townhomes mixed, going back to variety, some that are smaller, that may have garage right in the front, and then some where you'd have the garage in the back.
I mean, the ones on Ganaway Street, the townhomes that were there first, the brick ones, those have rear loading garages, and it's very nice, I think.
And
So like you said, that would be a higher end.
Yeah,
town.
that would be a
Yeah.
higher end.
And the lots lended themselves to that. The topography, I mean, basements were not quite free, but close.
Mhm.
So I think, just want to try to summarize kind of where I think everybody's thinking is that there would be variety, just like we talked about with the building materials, that perhaps there would be variety on the location of the garage. Is that what I've heard? In other words, you don't want to dictate, oh, well, all the garages have to be front loaded, and, is that, I'm talking about single family residential still, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
some potential, so I think what I heard was variety
Yeah.
of location
Yes.
of garage.
Yeah.
Good?
I think that's the theme of the day, variety.
That seems where it's at, but hey, I don't want to assume it.
And corner lots would lend themselves to that.
Corner lots could give you side entry, but these lots are so one of you just said that these house plans won't fit on these lots as drawn.
Right.
So either the lot's wrong or the house plan's wrong. I almost need to turn these lots sideways for those houses to fit on them, and then just have a real 25, 50-foot deep lot. So there's got to be some way to marry these prettier houses with the lot size. And you may have to keep them a mile being front loading, you may have to enter some from the back.
Well, I think we need to hear from the builder or developer if what's laid out in the big descriptive of the land and certain projects, is this the way it's going to be laid out permanently, or is this subject to change once we give them our feedback as to what we would like to see? Can they fit that on this footprint?
Great question.
Well,
Because this footprint, I feel, is what it says it is. It's, I don't think it's, what does it say? It isn't exactly the way it's going to be.
yeah, I would anticipate, I don't know, a lot of that's up to where you decide to go as a board, but, I would anticipate you've created a list of concerns that you have as a group that I think would be communicated to the developer of the property, I would assume. I would assume they're probably watching and, paying really close attention to what you're talking about here anyway. So I don't know if, what considerations the board's going to have, if you're going to let the, provide an opportunity for the developer to come back with a revised proposal based on these comments. I don't know if that's the direction you're headed. I think that's where you're headed. Sounds like anyway.
In
Well,
order for us to approve it.
What's
I
that?
think in order for us to make a recommendation to approve it.
But I think, yeah, coming up, I think what you're doing is, you're not giving specific, I think you're trying to communicate what are some of your major concerns about the development. And I think that's the purpose of going through all of this. It's going to be difficult, right now to say X amount of this, X amount of that. I think, some of the challenge will be, for the developer, if you go that route, to be able to take a lot of this conversation and come back with a revised plan, perhaps.
Well, in Cedarwood, we have some small houses and they have the garage on the sides, one level. It doesn't have to be two level like these, but one level, there's more land, but they have garages on the side and they look lovely that way. It doesn't have to be in the front for a smaller home.
Right. All right, were there any other, so looking at our development form, I think we, did you want to talk about driveways? I think I'm going to hear the same answer, variety.
Yep.
There may be some shared, maybe some separate.
I don't think
What do you think shared?
I don't think I've
Yeah.
seen shared driveways anywhere in Jamestown.
Okay.
So I might argue for all separate.
All separate.
Yeah.
Any other concerns about driveways or,
I'm concerned about shared driveways.
okay,
There might be some situations in some townhomes, but I can't see the need for shared driveways in single
for a
family.
single family?
It almost looks like,
Yeah. I wouldn't want.
based on these house plans and lot size, you're almost going to have to take two of those lots or 1 3/4 of those lots to get these house plans.
All right.
cut those from
So I think I heard a definite on
whatever they are.
separate driveways, right?
Yes.
Yes.
We
All right.
cut the
Agree.
size of those, or recommended.
Okay.
Did
What were you
we,
saying, Eddie?
did we recommend that we go to 6 rather than 8?
We're still in single family. We're still in single family. I think. Or you-
Are you talking about townhomes now, Eddie?
Well,
We're talking about,
We're still talking about single family.
yeah, I'm talking about that.
so what are you talking about, 6 and 8?
Wasn't there, how many homes was there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 3.
Oh, for these big lots, you mean?
Yeah. There's 7.
2, 4, 6, 7 on this. I think we were talking more about the individual breakdown of those lots.
Now I have what might be a silly question. This is probably more for the developer, but are these going to be custom built homes? Are these going to be just all built and then sold? I don't know. Are they gonna, I think we've talked about how we want to make sure that that there's variety within what the houses look like in terms of where the garage is, where the porch is, and making sure that it's not just like the same design for the house, just reversed for the next house.
Yeah, I know, and this is no offense to anyone who lives out there, but right across from Pennyburn where they're building now with Wren Farm, like if you go online and it's just because I like to sometimes see what houses are for sale out there, even though I have no plans on moving whatsoever, but you'll notice that it has those homes listed, a lot of them not even built yet, and it shows you, like, you can choose from this model, or this model, but they really all look exactly the same. There's like little nuances that are different, but they really, and when you drive out that way and look at them, you're like, they all look the same. So.
Well, the size of the lot limits you with being able to do very much. The smaller lots and the denser, there's only so many ways you can twist
Agreed.
that box on there.
But yeah, it is an interesting question. Would they be custom built homes? And then I even would want the definition of custom-built home, because to me, custom-built
Correct.
is like actually you sit down with an architect and design it, not the you choose from model A, B, and C, and you can decide whether you want the Formica or the granite that we have, and you can decide whether you want the stainless steel appliances or the black appliance. That's, to me, that's still not custom,
Right.
it's like semi-custom.
So just some questions.
So we'll put, question.
I mean, I see in this plan that I think it was in this plan, it might be in one that I've seen online, they have like a section they're planning for model homes, so I think it's more of like the latter, either like the semi-custom you're kind of talking about. Yeah, or something like that, but I would want that explained a little bit.
All right, okay. So we went through a lot of the topics. I think we covered just about all of them. Did anybody else have any single family?
I did want to ask
Yeah.
Matthew, because it says, and this has come up before, maximum height, it says 50 feet on these single-family homes. I think it says the same for the townhomes. We have already ordinances around maximum height, don't we?
We do, but this is a.
Right.
So it's-
No, right, but what do we have currently as our maximum height? Because 50 feet just seems really
Somewhere
tall.
in our stuff, I don't remember where.
I don't want to say it off the top of my head.
Okay.
I remember it was somewhere around 30 feet for single.
Okay, it just seems it should conform more to what we already have in ordinance, in my view.
Well,
That's up to.
it'd be challenging to build a 50
Yeah.
foot tall.
Well, that's why I just want to know what it is, what we already have, yeah.
3 stories or 4 stories.
Yeah.
Because mine is 36 and it's 3 stories.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah, and
What was yours? I'm sorry, I couldn't
It's
hear.
36 feet to the,
rid, his is
to the
3
ceiling.
stories.
And it's 3
3
stories?
story. yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, so 50 feet is excessive,
That's 4 plus.
okay.
Here you go, I actually, yeah, I think we've talked about how we potentially, even though, as a PUD, it'll have its own zoning standards and doesn't need to adhere to existing zoning standards, how we might want like single-family residents to adhere to most, if not all of our current single-family zoning standards. So some of those, like the minimum lot size in our current single-family residential zoning district is 10,000 square feet compared to
Okay.
this, where the smallest is 6,300.
Yeah,
That's a considerable difference.
that is a considerable difference.
And so I don't know if we want to make it the same of 10,000 or if we want to meet in the middle of a compromise of like 8. I don't know.
Well, like I said, and certainly I don't know anything, and we haven't heard more about it from the developer, but and I'm going to look up when we have a break, the name of that development in Indiana that Lynn sent along. But like I said, that has more acreage, but half the number of homes. And clearly that's a viable community. So it's possible to make a profit on having larger lot sizes. So I'm not sure we necessarily need to compromise at 8,000 if our ordinance is 10,000. So
Well, and I
again, and I know we can do whatever we want for this, but if we want it to conform with what other people have to adhere to when they
Yes.
have a home here or buy a piece of land, then
Agreed. And I think, we know from this area, it's just booming. And I know that COVID could have possible implications. And this is a 10-year plus potentially project. So it could look very different, but I don't know that that's going to change anytime soon. So I agree. I think that we could look at a lower density because it's going to sell.
yeah, and to that point, just real quick, I've been asking for some market research regarding kind of growth in the area and viability of the housing market. And unfortunately, I have not gotten anything from the developer, but I did just go on publicly sourced information on the National Association of Home Builders and also the US Census. And I'm certainly not a statistician, but just, a ballpark rough figure. It looked like over the last 10 years, High Point grew by 7.9% and Greensboro grew by 10.3%. The US Census didn't have Jamestown narrowed down in particular. But if we think that kind of growth is still going to occur over the next 10 years, that equates to about 9,000 more people in High Point and about 30,000 more people in Greensboro. So, I mean, it's a lot of people, for sure. So I think you're right. I think the demand will be there, is my point.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, so we had a lot of discussion about single-family residential architecture. Are we ready to move on to townhome architecture, or do you have any more topics to cover here? All right, I'm gonna move on. We can always come back. So let's look at the townhome residential architecture. Eddie, I know you had one about townhomes. You want to start?
Yeah, from the outset, the one-car garage to me makes little or no sense.
Okay.
And all you have to do is drive down behind the post office and see how the cars are stacked in the street and the driveway, and the garages are so small they can't get the car in anyway. And then another project up past the city lake is going to be the same way. Already is the same way.
Yep.
And it's horrible to ride by and look at how we let that happen, I don't know either. But
You're talking about
we did.
Windsor's property, if you're on the right hand
Across
side.
from Penny's.
Magnolia on Main,
Magnolia on Main.
Magnolia on Main. It's Magnolia.
yeah, across
on
from
Main.
True Value.
No, True Homes, I think. Windsor's the one that's back.
Well, this pod, from what we got information we got initially on a pod, we are supposed to be able to feel free to design it the way we think Jamestown should have it. So we need to be very comfortable in saying what we want, in changes in size, garages and everything. And let's just try that. That's why we have a PUD, from what I understand.
Well, I've known Ted Johnson since 1968 and was in the JCs with him for a long time, and also Civitan. He would never
And on the planning
let
board.
any kind of project go through without thorough. And I think he would appreciate us doing the same thing. It's not any demise to the project. It's to make it better. I want to see it to be a class act,
Agreed.
and we should want a class act. And I know the developer will get paid for it.
Yep.
Agree.
Well said.
All right, so talking about garage size and parking, what's the,
Two-car garage,
Two-car garage.
Two-car garage?
Yeah.
which would change the design.
I gotta say, I can't support that. I can't support forcing the developer to do two-car garages. A lot of those townhomes are gonna be one person in that home. Those are starter homes for people that are just moving out of apartments and stuff like that. The one thing I will say, having seen that development off of the one behind Home Depot that I referenced a couple meetings ago, if you have a single car garage, the driveway needs to be longer. You can't have a
Yes.
20-foot setback.
Yeah,
You need to be able to put a car in the driveway if
Yeah.
you do end up with two people. Otherwise, you need the offset parking. You need the, which that development has, by the way. They have it's a box out where they have extra parking. That's supposed to be for visitors, but all the residents park there.
yeah.
Because the driveways are only 18 feet long,
Well, and because
which makes no sense.
who has a garage that really has enough space for one or both of their
Well,
cars?
and again, I asked, forget her name. Is
Amanda.
she here? Huh?
Amanda,
Amanda, how wide the garages were gonna be, and she said that detail didn't exist yet, but you gotta have a 12-foot garage, at least. Because a 10-foot garage, you got an 8-foot wide car, you're gonna have a foot on each side to get out of it? No, it doesn't work that way.
Well, the
You gotta have a
project
12-foot
that
garage.
the project you're talking about, that some of us helped supply and build, was before SUVs became the standard.
No, this was just built in the last 5 years, the one behind Home Depot. That whole road hasn't even been there 5 years yet.
I'm talking about the one next to it.
Well, and I can't tell you how many houses I pass on a walk or a run where people have their garage doors open and their garages are stuffed to the brim with boxes and other things. So half the people don't even use their garage. So for that reason too, there needs to be more space, I think, in the
Well,
driveway.
if you look at the ones on Ganaway, at those townhomes, because I was looking at those recently, to your point with the width, I'm like, I don't even know how you get the car in, let alone open the doors once you're in there, so.
That's why you need to have at least a 12-foot wide.
Because you can't,
Yeah.
the car's too long.
Yeah,
But if you go to a
yeah,
12-foot
some of the
wide,
cars are too big, like if you have a big SUV,
if
they're
you go to
one
a
in the corner
12-foot wide
there.
garage, you're not gonna have a 20-foot wide house, which is what this plan called for. These townhouses are 20 feet wide. So-
Yeah,
And that's just not, that's too narrow.
yeah.
It's too narrow.
I think some people are concerned about having high quality. Again, that's a condition we're supposed to be following too, and that was in the initial application, high quality. So I don't know what is wrong with two-car garages for townhomes because they use part of it for storage. Even if you're downsizing, you end up with storage, and then you have maybe a place for a car. I don't see a problem with requiring that, but if everybody doesn't agree with that, or enough people don't agree with that, again, we look at the majority, then certainly they need to be larger.
You know what's
Let's
great
try
for
and
storage? A basement. And you don't need to use your garage.
So we're talking about vehicular storage. Yeah, where did the cars go? Sounds like there's concern about the garage size, one car versus two cars, but not just that, making sure it's wide enough for, either one, one or two. And then also, parking of vehicles in the driveway,
Driveways be deep enough, you can get a good car in and folks can still walk behind you on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
No, don't block the sidewalk. That drives me insane.
Yeah, it drives me.
The
nuts.
sidewalks are
more
for people
important?
to use, including people who utilize wheelchairs, who cannot just easily go around a car that's blocking the sidewalk, so.
So there are kind of two different issues, so one, let's start with the driveway, parking. I think everybody's pretty clear on that one. You wanted to make sure there's enough space where somebody's not blocking the sidewalk with a vehicle.
Yep.
Is that,
That's
I
correct.
think that's what I heard. Just make sure. Okay. So don't block the sidewalk.
Even if one person lives in one, they're going to have guests. So you need room for these potential guests to park.
Well, that's like Dennis brought up, the visitor parking areas.
That's those auxiliary parking areas that are between the buildings, because you have 4 to 6 units in a building, well, this picture had 6, but it only has 5, it has 5 doors and 6 garages, I think, or something like that. So it's an odd picture. But anyway, in between the two buildings, in between the buildings would be like a blocked out area where you can park. You don't parallel park, you go in nose first.
Again, that depends on human nature, because human nature, you're going to park close to where you want to go in. And hopefully they park where they're supposed to park. But we've seen examples in Jamestown of human nature parking right next to where they want to walk in. So I would support a longer driveway at least.
With a single garage, you gotta have a longer driveway. At
Bigger
least
garage.
big enough to get a car in.
All right, so let's talk about garage space. Are you dead set? Your concern is that you gotta have 2-car garage, or is it 1 car with a longer driveway? You want to see it mixed? I don't know. What's your thoughts about that?
My thought would be, like we talked about with the single family home, it'd be nice to see variety. So if you have some of the townhomes like Dennis described that are really for first-time home buyers, just moving out of apartments, and so maybe they do have a 1-car garage and such. But then we also know from the older ones on Ganaway Street, there is a market for the higher end townhomes too, and those are not going to first-time home buyers. Those are going to retirees and maybe professionals who don't have children and don't need a yard or don't want a yard or whatnot. So, and those, as we talked about, go in the back, and I don't know how many spaces. I'm assuming 2 in those. Those are 2-car garages behind there, but I don't know. But I think if you have a variety of affordability levels, then you would also see differences in terms of garage space and how that's laid out.
All right, I saw some shaking heads, but let's
Well,
hear your thoughts.
It seems that what works best is when they have a double garage on each end of the building, and there's some singles in the middle. You can pick up the folks that want to save the money, but make those singles big enough to have some storage in them other than just a car drive in there. And if you shorten the overall length of the buildings, then you can have more in places and more opportunities for double garages. You know, so then you could give a variety, but by saying you can't have a 100-foot long building, you know, you can't have 10 units, but shorten them down to 6, or, you know, if you 4 or 6, you'd have 2 doubles, 2 singles, you know, and then start over again.
Yes.
As I watch them, it's typically the double garages sell faster.
That's what I would
For more
expect.
money.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion.
What do you think, group? Variety.
Sounds like a plan of variety.
Allow for variety. But even though we're allowing for variety, I think it was very clear, still don't block the sidewalk. Have
Right.
longer-
Don't block the sidewalk.
Okay.
I meant to send DOT an email over the weekend, blocking the whole thing with the down branch covered in kudzu. You can't even walk around it on Gilbert College Road. It's down by Brandover on that stretch of Gilbert College. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
walked down there.
Again, DOT.
They finally mowed though.
What's that?
They finally mowed, I think.
Did
Yes,
they
they
really?
did.
They had not on Saturday morning, I'll tell you
Yeah.
that, because
Yeah,
I
it
was
right after, it was
covered.
right after I ran.
Oh, okay.
When I went to Harris Teeter.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know. Yeah, it was bad.
Well, how about, what else do we have on here? We got a lot of things. Materials. You feel the same way about materials for the townhomes, similar to the discussion we had on the single family, or is there a different?
Are we gonna talk more, since we are talking about garages, can we talk about
Yeah.
them, you know, because in this picture, and the trend now seems to be the snout houses, the, you know, garage homes where all you see is a garage,
Right?
and then everything tucked behind it. So I don't know what you all think of that. I mean, that again, is not in keeping with what Jamestown looks like, but it is what people are doing now, so.
So the location of the garage and it being out in front is the concern. Is that, you'd rather see it somewhere?
Right, so the garage is in the forefront and the door is
That's all you
receded.
see, basically.
Right.
Instead of having the door in the forefront and the garage receded.
You're saying the opposite of what's being shown in that picture?
Well, I don't know.
Well,
Page-
I'm just
page
saying that's what's
seven-
in.
Page
that's what's here.
17.
Yes, page 17, yes.
It looks like garages.
That's all it does.
That's all it looks like.
Okay.
Well, something Eddie and I've talked about, if you put, like the single family, if you put them on corners, let the corners be twins, or be 16 foot wide, but with 2 corner units. Put the twin garages, which are 16 feet wide as opposed to 12, and let the ones in the middle be singles. And they would be side entrance.
But I think what Rebecca's point was, is that it doesn't matter how big the garage is, that at least the way it's depicted here, and as it's common to see in building, new builds currently, is that the garage is the focal point of the house, because that's in the forefront, and everything else seems to recede into the background. And am I right, Rebecca? And do we want
Yeah.
that kind of
And I think that
aesthetic?
having the end units have them wrapped around will help a lot, because then you'll have, at least on the ends, you'll see homes. But, these others, would we want it set back more so it's closer to being in line with the front door, or?
In this style construction now with townhomes, it looks like you've only got the choice of either put it in the front or put it in the back. I mean, there's no way to, other than on the corners, to get anything coming in from the side. I don't know what rear entry garages would be, then you'd have to have an alley or
Yeah, right.
roads on the back to get to them.
But those of you who know more about building, can you, say they were still in the front, could the garages be,
Yes.
flush with the door or even receded from the door, so the door is the focal point rather than the
They could-
garage?
You could do juxtaposition.
Right.
Portrait had several plans.
Right.
It did just that.
Yeah.
Well, that would give you that longer driveway too, if you push back the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The photos that we took of Sedgefield Villas,
Uh-huh.
they use a community driveway, and they have the house sitting in the front, and they will use a wider driveway to go to 2 or 3, maybe 6 different units. The way it's laid out, if you go to photo number 4, that's actually the back side of that townhome.
It's not in there.
And you don't see the garage, it's up the alleyway. And
Which one, Eddie? What page?
on photo number 4,
Got it.
It's in this packet.
excuse me, 6,
Got it.
5 and 6. Well, 4 is part of 6.
What about picture 3? What is that of, Eddie? Do you remember? Picture 3?
Sorry?
Picture 3? What is picture 3 of?
Sedgefield Villas.
Is that the same? Because it looks different than 4, 5, and 6.
4, 5, and 6 are in the same setback. And they use one driveway.
So I think I prefer the style of number 3. If I were looking at your pictures, I like number 3. Those are townhomes, right?
See number 4 on the bottom?
Yeah, but what about number 3?
They're twins. Most of them are twins in there.
Isn't number 3 different than
Yeah.
number
Yes.
4 and 5?
Yes.
Yeah, I like 3 better than 5.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I particularly like the shared driveway.
Is that a
But that might
shared
just be-
driveway or is it like a shared road? I mean, they don't park in that road. They use it to get to their,
Right.
Yeah.
you're saying driveway, but it's more like a road to where they park.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
that I particularly like that. I'm not,
Laid out very well. Worth a ride out there.
yeah, I might have to see what it looks like in person.
yeah, the shared driveways do look more like roads out there than driveways.
If you look on page 14, someone mentioned receding the garages. On 14, the garages don't stand out at all, some of these, because the living portion is farther out. And it
That-
doesn't look just like garages. 14 in that same package,
14 happens to be Stone Gable.
that's stone
That's
gable.
Stone Gable.
Uh-huh. That's okay.
All of their units have side-by-side double garages.
That would be nice for high-end
developer that, there are other ways to get to those garages other than just a rifle shot.
Gotcha.
That is.
That may be an opportunity for variety too, depending
Yeah.
on the terrain, where they wanted to have one driveway road into one area with the garages in the back, and might be a higher end and also maybe age targeted. It might be a little bit easier for them to go in through a back door than a front door. It's hard to say. I think we're exploring so many options that we need time to think and reflect too, and maybe do some more research. But we're at least getting some ideas about what would work with Jamestown.
Right. And I think that's, to me, I feel like that's the intent of what y'all are doing at this point, is kind of coming out, with some of the major concerns, not every little detail.
Yeah.
And I think, if I was listening and had a development, these would, I think I'm getting a theme of some ideas, maybe not every little detail, but I think would give me the opportunity to respond if it was my proposal, for example.
Eddie, didn't you have a concern about the number of attached units?
Yeah.
Didn't,
Yeah.
you brought that up?
The number of what?
Attached.
Attached units. No, the picture here shows, what, 6?
There's 6 garages and there's 5 doors.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you saw that, Dennis. So great.
Maybe the door's on the side. I don't know. I can't see it from the.
No, you're right.
It's a side entry.
Must be. But was your concern, Eddie, that made just too long a unit?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on the topography.
Yeah.
How you can, all the land's not gonna be flat.
Right.
So if you can massage how you put them in there, you're not gonna lose any, but you don't have everything in a straight line.
Yeah, it'd be easier to put 4 together than 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this
Rebecca-
may depend on density too.
Yeah.
We get back to
Yeah.
density, every once in a while it rears its head again. And if we say we're going to reduce density, we may say, okay, townhomes 3, and then so much space on each side.
Rebecca, didn't you say we already have a standard for the town?
I think that was, I had it written on here. I believe they were asking for 8 and we currently have 6. So they're wanting 8 units per acre in T1 and then 7 in T2. But so yeah, we currently.
And do we have
6.
do we have anything that you know of that says how many can be attached? Is it 6 can be attached, or
No, I was just looking at units.
that's just per acre?
Yeah.
Okay, but we don't have anything that we know of that says how many, until you have to have a break between.
I think in the PUD, we're going to set whatever that is.
Yeah, I didn't know if we, again, I didn't know if we already had one, because, thinking that we should use that as a standard if we do have one, but if we don't, then we don't.
I mean, I think there's a benefit to deviating some from the standard, for the purpose of this. I think that, they've come to us asking for more than they want, smaller lot sizes, more units per acre and that kind of thing than they think we will necessarily give. But I think also at the same time, we should know what we're currently working with.
Good point.
But, I think it's fair to meet in the middle unless it's an outrageous.
Right.
Like something that would never work.
Yeah,
in our
even
town.
if the middle is
We
still
should feel
terrible,
free to
yeah.
say no, but I don't know how many attached, if that's
Okay,
specified.
I just misunderstood from the last time we had the conversation. Well, related to how many are attached, in a row, I know we had brought up not last time, several times ago about the storage of trash bins
Right.
and wanting to make sure that particularly for the middle units, no matter how many there are, 1, 2, 7, however many they end up being, that they have a place to store their trash bins inside and not have to go around the back, because again, like that's when we also talked about human behavior. Most people are not going to go around like that. They're going to just put it right in front of their garage if they're not using their garage for their car. So
I really don't think Jamestown is conducive to this many units in one line. I think 3, and then space, common space or whatever on the sides. And it would give them more of a feeling of being in a home, you know, not that they're choosing to be in a home, but there would be more green. Green is pretty important.
Well, I think it might depend too on where we're looking, because, you know, I could potentially see more attached units and maybe in a different variety closer to the commercial space, because I think there are townhomes near the commercial space versus the townhomes that are over near Mackey, Jordan Creek, and other existing townhomes.
The ones by the post office.
Yeah, because I mean, I think we want it to blend. We've talked about blending before. And so, you know, I think it might look weird to have more space right next to a commercial area, but if we do, you know, so that could maybe have some more attached units together compared to the other areas.
So variety.
Yeah. But maybe a maximum of 6. I think Ed, you suggested that?
I couldn't go with that. I think
Lower?
Jamestown is Jamestown. And if we're looking at what would look better, because we've got some complaints from people almost every day. I hear something about how did you allow that? And I'm just, you know, wanting to take a vacation, long vacation.
Well, we can remind people that we don't see everything, every development that comes through Jamestown. So it's not that we allowed it, it's that it was already zoned to be that.
But the feeling, the small town feeling, I think if you have 6, that's not really a small town feeling, and it's not really quaint. That's why I would go with, personally, this person right here is thinking 3 and then some greenery. Also, we're going to have to look at density. And no matter where they are in location to anything, if we're looking at density and reducing, this would be an option to say, okay, reduce the townhomes and put common space there. Might be able to save some trees.
I have a different opinion. You know, we're asking this developer to do a lot with the single family homes and with buffering and with stuff like that. And he, you know, he could make up some of his money here. And I keep looking at the map, all right, the map of this development. The reason people are complaining about the homes by the post office is because they see them.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's right in the middle of town. I agree. How did we let that happen? Or how did that happen? I don't know.
It wasn't the planning board.
No, I get that. But this development, if these townhomes are placed properly, and we all agreed they need to be in the interior as opposed to anywhere else, they won't be visible from the road for the most part, you know, the main road. And I don't know about you, but unless I live in there, I don't intend to drive in there. So I'll never see them. So I think we need to be reasonable and get it where you can with the single family homes, because that's important. And maybe give a little bit on the townhouse.
I think
As long as it's inside. Again, if it's inside and the proper buffering's there, I'm never going to see it, because I'm not going, unless I drive on this one main road, I'm not going to go down these other roads to these developments.
Well, you're going to be walking all the trails, Dennis.
I don't walk in developments. I walk along main streets.
Only main roads, okay.
I only walk main streets.
Well, I will say, you know, to go back to the density piece, I think that is something you may not see what the townhomes look like.
No, but you're
might
asking
feel-
for more space on the single family homes, and that'll reduce density. And I'm not saying go to 10 wide, but 6 isn't unreasonable.
6 is not unreasonable.
6 is not unreasonable.
And they're not all going to be 6.
And it's true,
That would
and
be
they're
my
not all gonna look
suggestion.
alike. You know, because we're asking for variety in what they look like. And some will have 2-car garages, and they'll be at the ends. So there'll be some variety there. And I you know, and again, unless you live there, like, you know, I even think of Cedarwood. I think I've driven in there one time. I've lived here 18 years. And it was only because I wanted to see someone that was in there. I went to their home and I had to find it. Allison.
Yeah, I just went to her home recently.
Yeah, it's, you know, and she's the first development. She's the
Yeah.
first road in.
Yeah.
Anyway, now, unless you're going to go in there and if it's buffered properly and the townhomes are further in the interior,
Well, it looks like there are more townhomes in here than there are single-family homes.
well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the density.
There are definitely more townhomes than single-family homes, and
I
I'm
have
not
it written
sure.
down, yeah.
I
Well, it's
think
in
that's
here.
one reason that the density is going to be as high as it is, because you got 6 different sections of townhomes.
Well, but the single family homes will go, that number will go down if you go from.
I know that
6 to
single family
10,000.
homes will, but what I'm saying is there's 6 different sections of townhomes in here.
Yeah, but,
They're not all going to be in one little spot. They're all over the place. So,
well, again, that's why we've asked the developer to put them in the interior so no one can see them except the people that live there.
I don't think it's a question of seeing, it's also quality of life.
Yes.
If you're so tight together, you don't have a space for, some of them will have children, even though they're small. You can't say no children allowed here because you don't have enough room
Didn't say
to
no.
play, you know, but I think if you, that's just me, just looking at quality of life, where you have at least some room for some trees on the side where the kids can play, or there's some greenery. This is the person with the greenery idea, but it just looks so compact and so too much of a city feel versus what we want Jamestown, at least from our surveys, for it to feel. That's just my thought. That's just where I am.
Sherry, I agree with you, actually. I lived in the townhome area. I lived in Greensboro, had 6 in mine. They all weren't 6, but it was 210 townhomes in that place.
Well, this they're proposing, as of it's written now, is 708.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just way too
Townhomes.
many.
I think it also might depend on, are we talking about 6 ranch style townhomes or 6 2-story townhomes?
Yeah, that's a good-
Because if you
Yeah.
look at their design, 6 with their current design, I know we've talked
They're
about
all
the setbacks.
two-story, yeah.
That looks just like an apartment building.
Mhm, mhm.
So I think that could play a factor
That
also.
story is
Yeah.
good.
Ed, you're saying that, I mean, I'm turning to you because of your real estate experience, that 6 is usually reasonable to have attached to each other.
Yeah.
All
That'd be a
right.
maximum, sure.
That would be the maximum.
A little tougher to summarize that one, but I think 6
Good luck.
potentially as a maximum.
But we'd still like to see a variety.
But still would like to see a variety.
Yeah.
And, green space mixed in where it can be mixed in. The topography is going to make a difference on where some of the units go.
Right.
And we've already talked about, garages being set back, which is going to change the appearance and look and feel of the units, anyway. So if I say, am I correct in saying 6 is a maximum?
And 4 would be delightful.
Or
I like that.
just still encourage, but it sounds like you want to encourage some variety.
Yeah.
Okay,
I like 4,
okay, so, all right.
a little bit better.
And I-
6 max.
And again, I might say that if there are 6, they're not 2-story.
But
I don't know if that's.
4 is the preference or less, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
It actually has some twins, too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Again,
Single story, too.
if you go look at that development that Lynn sent us, it shows how they've mixed townhomes with single-family homes. It shows it really nicely. There's also, just I happen to be familiar with it from visiting someone there in Raleigh. It's called Briar Creek, and that also is a planned development, and it also very well mixes the townhomes with the single-family homes, so you can take a look at that. So it can be done very nicely. Yeah. It doesn't have to just be a big block of in your face.
And we might like to see more ranch style townhomes, I think.
Yeah.
Than 2-story.
Is that something, height? Is that something that's a,
Yeah, I think
it's-
similar to the,
Yeah, it looked like stone gables.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some others.
well, I think we're saying we don't want the 50 feet.
No,
Yeah.
definitely.
well, hang on, let me make sure I got all that correct. I've heard one voice, saying, ranch style. So I assume you're talking about 1 story.
Yeah, 1-story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any strong preference about that?
Well, I think what we're saying is a variety. So
Yeah, again,
some
not
would be
all of
one
it,
story,
yeah.
some would be
Okay.
multi-story.
So the height, you're saying there'd be some variety in height?
Yeah.
as
Yes.
well? Okay,
But how many there are attached may dictate the height.
sure.
Because again, I think there's a difference between 6 single-story townhomes and 6 two-story townhomes.
That's a good idea, if you could have some high-end, single-story.
Uh-huh.
We're talking 1 or 2. You're not talking 3.
Get more than empty nester. Of course, I like that concept where they've got 4, each one's got an outside corner. A listed one a couple of weeks ago, and it sold in 2 days with multiple offers for more than we were asking. So that concept of 4, and each of those, the sunroom bumped out, so the garage was behind. So when
Oh,
you drove up, you
there
didn't
you
see
go.
the garage door. And that may be similar to Sedgeville.
Take pictures and send them
Send
to
them.
us.
Okay?
All right, we want to talk about
He probably has pictures already.
the exterior of the buildings? We move on from 4?
We're going to take a break, if that's okay.
Hey, it's up to you.
If we could take a 5-minute break, it is 7:47. Let's come back at 7:55. So a little more than 5 minutes.
That's 8 minutes.
Okay, all right. So Jason, I think you're going to help us wrap up the townhome discussion, correct?
We're talking about exterior building materials.
Okay,
Yes.
before we go into that, so I'm hoping we can maybe wrap up that and then, because I think that's pretty much the last we have to talk about, right, with architecture?
Gotta do it.
Okay, and so if we could wrap that up, and then what I'm thinking is maybe we should start at this PowerPoint from our 9/14 meeting, which is the one that's hard to read, has a bunch of key elements on it, and I thought it might be beneficial to go through those key elements and start formulating our recommendations, at least getting them a little more concrete, rather than just this kind of mad list of various things, so that it's a little more organized. Does that sound good? Okay, all right.
All right. So we discussed building materials or cladding materials, if you will, the exterior of the building. And so from the single family discussion, I don't want to assume, but what's your preference? What are your thoughts about the exterior building materials related to townhomes? And that would be brick, stone, vinyl, mixture, like we talked about with single family homes.
Well, I like hardy board too, the masonry siding that's paintable.
Right?
One of the drawbacks to vinyl is you're sort of stuck with your color. So the hardy board type is a masonry type product, has texture. It can be a very pretty siding and you can paint it from time to time.
Right.
So
It lasts forever.
Yes.
yeah, it lasts forever and you're not, masonite is the hardboard side, that's the, but the hardy board will last a long time and you may want to change the color scheme over the seasons and freshen things up.
And there's some variety. LP has a knockoff of that.
Yeah.
With a variety of silhouettes that lend itself to doing some architectural details.
Yeah,
That's not even available in vinyl.
it's very attractive, yeah.
Could we have that in the single family
Sure.
area
Oh,
also?
yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a house going up in Cedarwood with party board.
Yeah.
Party board.
It's not masonite, it's a cementuous
Yeah.
siding, they call it,
Yeah.
cementuous.
Cementuous siding, I like that. Cementuous.
Okay, what about
That's kind of.
what about the discussion about brick and stone? Are you saying that's not as much of a concern on townhomes? Or what's your overriding concerns about other materials? What's the primary material?
Well, I think we still like it to be an accent in the townhomes, but it wouldn't need to be as big a percentage as you'd like to see it in the single family.
Okay,
And this is where the highlight of brick and stone and so forth with good quality sidings could be very attractive.
Well, some of the accent stuff that you're not familiar with would lend itself if 22 or 20, 22, 24 feet. There's some gorgeous stuff from an accent for corners and linears, lineals and things like that they can do out of balance. Some of the rest of the stuff that just pop.
Yeah,
Really classy stuff.
Yeah.
Really classy stuff.
Isn't there some vinyl like that looks like shakes?
Yes,
That wouldn't be bad at all.
yes, yes.
I think, again, looking at the townhomes and, connected homes that we see going up, maybe right along our borders or right within, that use a lot of the vinyl. When you have, maximum, if we say 6 units stuck together, that's an enormous building. That's a lot of vinyl. And I think, especially the ones across from Penny's that are going up, if you look at them at the front, but you have to turn in to see them, I'm sure they look very nice from the front, but all we see are the expanse of
Yep.
shiny plastic. And so,
Absolutely.
I would almost be more cautious using a lot of vinyl with the townhomes if they're going to be multi-story and 6 stuck together. Or if there's a way to write in there, placement of it or there's so many variables. It's hard to do, but certainly I think we've all seen where it's gone way wrong. So
Well, and I think we've talked about blending a lot, and we look at like Jordan Creek and Bordeaux. And those townhomes, I would say, have a lot of stone and a lot of brick. They don't have a lot of vinyl. And so I think particularly maybe for those tracts of townhomes, we want them to look similar to the ones in the area, or at least not stand out.
Well, I totally agree, but the challenge for the developer, you look at the cost per square foot using those materials, and you're trying to do affordable. One of our concerns that you and I have in common is if we continue to drive the price up. For instance, lumber this year has gone up 160%. Wow. Just lumber, okay? 160, that's the latest number from the NAHB.
I was going to say, you can find that number on the National Association of Home Builders, because I found it today, so.
But the concern there is affordability, and even with the smaller ones, we may make it so unaffordable that police officers, nurses, PAs, and teachers will not be able to live in Jamestown. And that's, forgive me for being passionate about that, but it's.
No, I agree.
well, I share your concerns. I just want to try to think of a way, how can we write into an agreement that it is, if you do use, so again, using that example of the ones across from Penny's, if they could have been mandated to have a giant tree there, some sort of buffer, some kind of, something, but
Not a
just
bad
because
idea.
you've been mentioning the high end vinyl, I'm just picturing what I'm seeing going up, and it is
Yeah.
not
Well,
high
that's-
end. So
that's
is there a way to
production.
screen that? Is there a way to,
Mhm.
make sure that there are mature trees around, or something where it's not just, here's no trees and here's a giant shiny wall?
Or put kudzu up.
Kudzu.
A wall of
No,
kudzu.
that's an invasive
Oh,
species.
God. That would just take over the town.
But
I'm kidding, I'm
even those townhouses that are gonna have commercial development in front of them, you're not gonna see them from the road eventually. You see them now, and you're right, it's obnoxious now, but eventually you're not gonna see them because there's gonna be commercial development in front of them.
Well, we have professional people living in Jamestown now.
Yeah.
And we have small homes in Forestdale that are affordable. So I don't think we have to keep focusing on not having something look really a little bit higher end for affordability too. I think we can do both. Have some brick, have some stone. We want them to have a nice place when they drive up to look at too.
I will say, I want everyone in my life to live in Jamestown because I think Jamestown's great, and the people I love, I want near me. And I have had many people tell me who are professionals, but with families, so the smaller homes don't work, and they cannot afford to live in Jamestown. I had someone tell me that 2 weeks ago, because there was a house for sale in my neighborhood, and I was like, oh, you should look at it. And he said, I can't afford Jamestown. So it is an issue. It is an issue.
I think part of that is the demand though too. And so with just bringing in this many homes, that's going to help considerably with the costs because, I'm like you, I have, Zillow on my phone. We're not house hunting by any means. We love our house. There aren't that many homes that go up for sale in Jamestown. And if they do, they're gone very quickly. So I think part of that is the demand, and it's a seller's market right now. So they can charge an astronomical amount for a home in Forestdale that is not very big or needs a lot of work because there aren't any other homes in the area for sale. So I think that's part of it.
That is part of it. Even prior to current though, like I'd say maybe 4 or 5 years ago. This is just one example. It's very anecdotal evidence, but a friend of mine who teaches over at Millis Road, and she lives over kind of like off of Wendover between the Palladium and Piedmont Parkway. And her husband, probably paid similarly. And I'm always like, oh, come look at these houses in Jamestown. She can't afford it. She cannot afford it. So I mean, it is just something to think about for sure.
Okay, so I think I heard, still cautious about overuse of vinyl, but maybe, like to see a variety of quality materials, but not, maybe not as a greater percentage like the single family, a little bit more flexibility.
More flexible.
Did I hear that? Okay.
Yeah, can we see is there an elevation available on the rear of these townhomes to see what they look like? Did I miss that in?
No, we haven't received that.
That could allay some of your fears right there, because they may be broken up. I know that Portrait, for instance, did a lot of neat things in the back of their units where they didn't look so.
Steve, is there a projection of when lumber prices might go down?
Never, probably.
Never.
Well,
It just makes me wonder if if we have to sacrifice all the aesthetic things because the lumber is so high, is it worth building right now? Because 20 years from now, when when you're not saying, well, the lumber was too high, so we had to have cheap materials on the front because the lumber costs so much, people, are going to be like, well, why did they, want that? Because just because the lumber was high, you should maybe wait till the lumber's not so high so you can have nicer homes.
well, rule of thumb, 20% of your house is what we call the framing package. And that's what's leap, if you can get it. Part of it is pandemic driven. Part of it is there is not the best relationship right now between our current administration and our folks in Canada.
Oh,
And
okay.
if you drive to the Canadian border, you will see stacks of framing lumber,
Oh,
and they're waiting.
this is very interesting.
So there's a lot of this going on.
Okay,
And so when all the egos get together and some of that's reduced, we'll see some of
okay,
it come down.
okay. So maybe that will come down.
Part of it's politically driven.
Okay.
And I'm not taking sides.
No. I just was curious if it will come down
Tariffs,
foreseeable future. Why don't,
and we don't produce that much framing material in the United States anymore. We have ravaged white southern pine, excuse me, pine. And it's our Canadians, we're bringing in stuff now from Brazil and Argentina, framing lumber from Brazil and Argentina through New Orleans.
okay.
All right.
Interesting.
So that's, I'm looking at.
Jason's
market-
like, this is way off topic. Let's bring it back.
Well, you're curious about this.
I am very curious. I'm sorry.
No, it's, our global economy certainly changed over the last 20 years and affects a lot of things.
I still might, I'm sorry, argue
Yeah, go
about, like just maybe even, not all of them, but some of the tracks that are closer to some of the other townhomes in the area, maybe having some more specifications about materials in those areas. Think about Russ living next to these townhomes.
Well, it would be nice, again, I think some of our fears would be diminished if we could see the rear elevation and see that it's not a wall of plastic.
And I think too, as Dennis keeps bringing up, if we could see the buffering, what the buffering is going to look like. I mean, we all know that the buffering that was proposed with 24-inch shrubs is not going to cut it. But yeah, if we saw that there's, mature trees around the townhomes that, block some of the expanses of sameness.
Does that get it? May depend on location?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, buffering.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we could also have variety, because when we get to density, that may cut a lot of these townhome the numbers down. I'm sure that will happen. And then we may say, oh, a certain percentage, you might be affordability, and then you'd have so many that are higher end and just move up with the materials.
Yeah.
But even, again, I say that for affordability, those families still want something that looks nice.
Finding the balance, finding the balance.
That's one of the reasons that existing housing is being zipped, because you know what the price is, it ain't going up. Price is right, and they're giving financing away.
Yeah.
What, 2.5 to 3.5%? With 3.5% down.
So what other architectural concerns, looking at that list on townhome architecture on the last, page 3 there, are there any other concerns? think we talked about,
Well, you know, we talked about, we wanted them to be attractive, and sometimes you do that with windows, and sometimes you do that with little architectural features to break them up and just not look like a long, straight box or something, so,
Yeah, so they do a transom, so they do
yeah.
half rounds.
And of course, the developer's gonna wanna do that anyhow, because he wants his stuff to sell and
Yeah.
get a good dollar for it, so we're probably just telling him what he'll want to do anyhow, but we do want some nice windows and nice architectural features.
okay. So windows, architectural features are important.
Yeah.
That's fair to,
Both in single family and in multifamily.
And that's still affordable. I mean, a transom or a half round, something like that is still,
Yeah.
particularly vinyl these days. Very, very reasonable.
all right. What else on that list?
What about the decks, or are there going to be patios, or, you know, because there's nothing to show what's going to be in the back?
Now what do you think?
Even a family that can't afford a lot should have a deck. You know, they can sit out there and have a barbecue or something. I mean, I don't know if we could require decks on all of them, but maybe some choices.
Or even a patio that looks really nice.
At
with
least a
concrete
patio,
or-
yeah.
Yeah, patio or decks.
What'd you say?
At least a patio, you need to have
Yeah.
some
At least a
patios or
patio.
decks, someplace to be outside and cook and
So some sort of an outdoor
Outdoor
living space,
area,
you know, like
yeah.
patio,
Yeah.
deck.
entertainment space or something.
And properly screened too.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's another thing, a lot of these places, they just stick
Fence
slabs on the back and,
Be nice.
I mean, you don't use them because
No.
you're in somebody else's yard.
That's right.
So maybe if these garages were pushed back, that also can create sort of little
That's right.
courtyard areas. for
That's
people.
right.
And privacy fences. Standard, you know.
Yeah, if you had a garage on one side that's placed, and maybe just a privacy fence here, all of a
Right.
sudden you got an entertainment place.
I lived in a townhome for a bit, and we had a patio, and it had privacy fences on each side, and we were in one of the middle units, and
Yeah, that's what I was,
yeah, and it was lovely.
All right.
And affordable.
and we had a tree back there.
Well, it was Boston, so I won't say that.
Okay, what else on that list?
Is there anything about building height? Did we need to discuss that at all?
I think we said 1 to 2
We did, we
stories.
covered that.
We did talk about, 1 and 2 story, somewhere, yeah, there we go, 1 or 2, you need to talk about maximum or,
I guess that would be
2
standard.
story. I think you have enough fire apparatus to handle 2 story. But,
I'm just so perplexed where this maximum height of 50 feet came from, because from everything you all who know better than I do are saying, that's just so out of bounds it's just very odd to me. It's neither here nor there, I'm just saying.
It's more than we
The
need,
original plan had
30 to,
apartments in it.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, the original plan that had apartments. in it.
30 to 40 maybe.
Okay. Got it.
But the multifamily is where that 50 came from. And they were thinking about maybe having 3 levels.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
taking that early on.
Probably where it was.
We don't really need that much for these things.
Now, I know we've talked about lot sizes for single-family residents. I just want to throw it out there. I know this is going to be different because it's a PUD, but our minimum lot size in our existing standards for multifamily residents are 7,000 square feet. These are 2,000. And honestly, if we go back to the single family, they are not even meeting the minimum for our multifamily residents.
No.
So I don't know if we want to talk about the square footage of townhomes
What,
or not.
so the 7, I'm just thinking about
Oh, that's-
townhomes already, they can't possibly have 7,000 square.
That's
feet
the minimum lot size.
For each
It
unit?
says
or
for
all of them?
multifamily, I don't know. That's in our zoning standards.
square
that was my
footage we
question.
have is lot size here in their
Right.
plan.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about current townhomes we have in town. I'm just thinking there's no way their lot size is 7,000 square feet.
Yeah,
Yeah, those will be a part of like a different,
And I'm talking
Zoning
about each
district.
individual, I'm not talking about a clump of units, each individual,
Yeah.
there's no way it could be 7,000.
those will be from a different zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
The
so.
back section of quarter bath,
Yeah. So
that was the last one
those
developed.
might be 7,000.
Yeah, might be.
Some of them might be.
That's a good question, because I don't understand that either about, unless I'm not hearing something about the 7,000 square feet. What does that include?
I mean, it's the whole lot.
That's a lot.
It's the
So
whole
it
lot.
does include the green space and the,
And then how
Your
many
garage, your
units?
house,
and the,
yard.
yeah, setbacks, all of it.
And then you decide how many units are going to be on that 7,000 square foot
No, that's one unit.
per unit. That's
per unit.
Yeah. So yeah, our existing zoning standards for multifamily residential zoning district is 7,000 square feet for a minimum lot size. The single family is 10,000. So that might change how we feel about the lot sizes for the single family proposed in this development. And maybe the townhome, I don't know.
What is, for those of you who know better than I do, what's 10,000 square feet in like acreage? What would that, I'm just trying to visualize what a 10,000 square feet.
12,000 square feet will be a quarter of an acre. It's a little bit less than a
Okay.
quarter of an acre.
That's 12,000 square feet is a quarter of an acre.
12,000
Okay.
is a quarter.
An
of an
acre
Thank
is
you.
43,160, whatever, yeah.
But like Forestdale East are all third of an acre lots,
Or all what?
third of an acre.
Third of an acre. I think you said 30 acres. I'm like, I don't think so.
15,000 square feet.
Oh, okay.
But the bigger one, like, I think Jamesford Meadows is 12,000, and maybe Whittington Hall is 12,000.
Mhm.
They're both a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
And of course, those are nice developments.
Cedarwood would be what on average, you think?
Well,
Yeah.
because of water, because of well and septic tanks, Cedarwood was like 3/4 of an acre, maybe 35,000 square feet, but most of them are close to an acre.
Okay, anything else on townhomes? All right. So you guys tell me, I've got a list of all the things we've talked about from the last meeting. For this meeting, at least the meetings I've been involved with, you may have other things from some of your other meetings. Do you want me to go over that list? And
I think that might be a good idea. And then I thought after we come back at the break and gotten started, I thought, I don't know if Jason, it would be beneficial for you to organize our thoughts before we try to do it as a group and then come to us with like a document of, here's what you all said as your tentative recommendations. Let's add meat where meat needs to be added and.
it's up to you guys, how you want to do that. I'm not going to be able to produce that tonight.
No.
Really? We can have a breakfast meeting.
Yeah, I have done stuff like that before, but maybe I can push it a little bit.
We're just kidding.
I guess
I think I've heard
it's
enough.
being late,
Yeah,
late-ish, instead of having us revisit as a group every single thing, which stirs more conversation, and then we're back at the same things over and over again, to if we had something,
yeah,
with, okay, here's what you already talked about, it would help us really focus of like, okay, this is what, we know we recommended this is what we wanted when or at least on that day, we wanted this. Some things may need more detail added to them. Some things may need less detail added to them. And then that way we can it will be a little more organized than us all trying to do it together. That's
sure. And I feel like we've tried to do a good job of, going around the room, making sure we had, some consensus to some level on all these different topics. So I think I would feel comfortable bringing something like that back to you, or through email. I don't know how you want to submit it. But certainly it could
Yeah, I mean,
get back to
you
you.
can send it to Matthew, who can send it out.
Okay, be happy to do that.
I think we had more of a consensus with the other bigger issues, except placement or locations of certain things like commercial. I think we were still in that, but we did, and this has been a little more challenging for all of us for different views, which we need to have in a group to have different views.
Yeah.
But this has been a little more challenging than our other meeting, I think.
I still feel like in general, the general direction, there was consensus. Now, what this is going to turn into and how the developer of the property responds to these concerns and issues, I don't know what that's going to, we'll have to see. But I think you've outlined a really good list of concerns and be happy to put this into something a little more formal that you can look at.
Could we revisit the placement? Would that be all
I'm by
right?
me.
Mostly because I think you mentioned that we had said that the townhomes would go on the inside.
Well,
And I don't
we
think-
indicated that the desire for that, but I thought we were gonna wait for them to come back with yet another
Okay.
plan.
So
Than the
I'm-
developer.
Maybe, so I might
Well,
want
I
to read.
thought, that's,
My recollection was that you'd like to see a lot of the amenities in the central part of the development. There were some specific locations where you did not want townhomes, like across from Cedarwood. You wanted to see those moved. So I think there were some things, I don't know that there was an overwhelming, everybody said, oh, all the townhomes need to be in the middle.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that.
yeah, we did.
But I did hear specific locations you wanted to move from. Buffering was definitely noted as we went through our last discussion about.
Major concern, Buffy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think we've got, I think you've done a lot of work. We've got a lot of comments to work with and you got a pretty good list.
And we haven't gotten to the report on the trees. I think that's still coming. We're
Yeah,
reporting on.
so that was one of
We
the
have to
ones
wait
that
on
we had
that.
asked to come. So it sounds like maybe next meeting, Matthew, folks will be coming, maybe next meeting-ish?
My hope.
Okay, okay.
So should we maybe, if we're not going to go over the whole list, maybe just list out what outlying questions that we have that would be good to have answered by the time we do look at that master list? Because there have been several things that have come up that I feel like, before we make recommendations, there were questions just about like our current ordinances and, various numbers of things or placement and stuff like that, so.
Yes, that sounds great. If you can remember what those questions are, I encourage you to throw them out there.
And I would also like to bring up, I still don't think we have received the information about the impact on schools.
No,
Received
no.
something from Katie, but it did not answer the question, right?
Okay,
And it's
so
not Katie.
yes.
Katie
So
did not give us that information. You forwarded us that information, so it's not on you.
So what we received was a list of home prices of comparable houses in the area. That to me makes no sense to what the questions were. But so what I did, again, just using open public source, was I used the National Association of Home Builders again. And in 2017, they did a study that said that single-family homes tend to, this is new construction, apparently existing construction actually has more kids than new construction does. So single-family homes generate 0.302 children per unit. And so, and then townhomes generate 0.219 school-age children per unit. So with the numbers that are currently in this, that's 354 kids added to the school system. Those are all school-age children, I should say, that the Home Builders Association looked at. If you look at the US Census data, and if you, again, I'm not a statistician, but if you were to just, which is probably not a totally fair way of extrapolating, but just say that this development will be representative of the school-age children in our county, then that would add 807 kids to our school system. Again, that's probably an unfair overestimate, but I think it's fair to say it's probably somewhere between those two numbers. So we are looking at, again, if you do a very simple, probably you're gonna have more kids in the elementary school because there's more grades in the elementary school. But even if you just split it 3 ways between elementary, middle, and high school, you're adding over 100 kids per school. So minimum. So that's if they all go to public school, if they, that there's things to be considered, if they don't go to charter schools or magnet schools or whatnot, there's other things to be considered. But that would, I think that's probably the closest we're going to get to a projection since no one else seems to want to give it to us. So, yeah. So, I mean, 100 kids in a school, at least in an elementary school, is at least 4 more teachers, at least.
Minimum.
So,
And can you repeat those numbers? I'm sorry.
yeah, it would be 354 kids.
Or like the.
Oh, yeah. So for single
percentage or whatever,
family,
Yeah.
it was 0.302 school-age children per unit. And then for townhomes, it was 0.219 school-age children per unit.
Okay. Because I think like what I've heard from a lot of people in the area is, why can't the whole development just be single family residents? Or why can't, why are there townhomes at all? Why is there commercial space at all? Why is there X, Y, and Z, whatever? And I think it's important to note that there is a difference between the number of school age children that townhomes will bring versus single family residents.
Yeah.
Still a lot.
Yeah.
Again, density
Yeah.
is still a concern, but.
And I think it said the county, shoot, I must have not written it down, but the county, it was in the 6% of how many kids are school aged in Guilford County. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So, and I did also kind of look at, because another thing I'd asked for is market research, again, regarding the viability. There was a lot of strong stuff on the National Association of Home Builders indicating that, and you all who work in this field know better than I do that, the housing growth is very strong right now, that the market's very strong despite what's going on with COVID and such. And then I also had asked Matthew for an estimate of how many would be added to what the population growth would be, but was told that that was not available information yet. But again, just using US Census data, it looked like we were going to add about 3,700 people to the population of Jamestown. So.
And what's the current population? I know it's been said before.
About 4,400, I think we talked about.
4,500, right?
It's about 4,300.
4,300.
So
You said addition of how many?
3,700.
It's almost doubling. This
Yeah.
density is, again, in the room.
Yeah. And again, I just use census data from the US Census website to get those figures.
If we're talking about the possibility of 800 children, that's a lot.
Yeah, again, that's an unfair overestimate, I'm guessing. That's just based if the number of people added to the town, if 6% of those were school-aged children. So,
Well, remind me, we have a school report. What did they account for in their? They said it wasn't enough, right? Because they accounted for some growth in the area for like Millis Road.
yeah.
But
yeah.
it wasn't
I can't remember.
that much, right? I don't know if it was in this or somewhere else. I think it's in another packet, maybe. Okay,
Maybe in a book for him
yeah.
over here.
Thank you for doing that research.
You talked about questions. Could one of our questions be for us to really figure out in our own minds and from looking at the data that we have and the documents that we have, how we can address density for the next time we meet?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How she talked about having questions to think about for the next time. Could we not ask each person to look over your documents, the things that you have, other resources, and think about a density that's realistic for Jamestown? Our schools, do we want to double the population? What can we live with 10 or 15 years from now? Look for the future. It's not just about, the next 2 or 3 years. That, to me, that would be a good question for us to research individually and then maybe come up with some good ideas. And that would solve some of these problems.
Something we haven't talked about that we could think about on our own would be, what do we want to see in the commercial space?
Oh, yeah, we have not talked about that.
Because I know that
Yeah.
Ed and I already have a date to go to the ice cream shop.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
anybody else who wants
I
to
mean,
go
we
as
could
well.
talk about that now. Let's talk about it now.
Well, I think we obviously need a mattress outlet.
You know what? A mattress outlet, only after we get storage.
Did we finish talking about placement? Someone was talking about,
I feel good about where we left it, I think. If others.
was it placement of commercial or something we were talking about a while ago?
I think that's one of the things he's gonna
We're going to review.
review and put in for us, but we have not talked about the what kinds of commercial we want to see. So that might be worth talking about now, so that when he writes all this up for us, he being Jason, I'm sorry, I didn't use your name, Jason.
That's okay.
That guy over
Well, we
there.
talked about uses, but maybe we didn't.
I mean, we talked about, like, I think we talked about how we don't want to see like a grocery store. But I don't think we've talked about,
We didn't want drive through.
oh yeah, so we did talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, we talked about something that, would help, basically be service to the people that live there, not compete with businesses
Okay.
downtown. I mean, I don't think we named specific type businesses, but I think the discussion was generally around types of businesses that would serve that development, the smaller scale type things. We didn't go into detail about it.
But I think that's what we want to do, is go
I
into
mean,
detail.
we can,
Okay.
we don't have to.
I mean, I think we have the liberty to, right? Because I remember I asked, can't we not, because I'm going through this with something else previously, that we couldn't dictate what kinds of businesses go. And then I think someone said, no, we can for this. So I said, great. That's how this is the only way I remember that we had this conversation.
All right.
So maybe we should talk about
All right.
specifics.
Yeah.
Come back to
Because,
this one.
things to service the community, the residents there could all look very different. I mean, an ABC store would service the community right there. So, but is that what we want? I mean, I don't mind.
So types of businesses, and one thing that I do remember, there's no drive-throughs. Is that still? Yeah.
I'm for no drive-throughs, and that would eliminate problem areas with trash or traffic. Because if they live in there, they can go there, to a restaurant.
All right, what else?
Restaurants. We say what we don't want in there, what we do.
No, what we do want.
You tell me.
What we do want.
You can be either way.
I want a restaurant.
I'm okay with
Would
restaurant,
like to see restaurants,
Yeah.
right?
positive on a restaurant.
Yeah, cookout. But one of those really, have you seen the new cookouts?
You don't want a
Ooh, nice.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm kind of thinking that it would fit into the kind of building that they proposed here,
We have
right?
a lot.
It wouldn't be its own freestanding businesses.
Okay, so we got no drive-through, restaurants.
Probably small businesses, small shops, things.
Small shops.
Insurance agents,
Boutiques, insurance agencies,
real estate.
maybe a dentist.
Okay, so small shops / professional office.
Yeah,
What I
sure,
heard,
sure.
Yeah, I think that was in the proposal
CPAs,
anyway.
attorneys.
Yeah. Psychiatrist.
With a project this big, we better get a medical facility in there.
Emergency care.
All right, what else is on that list?
Medical,
Medical?
that may come under professional.
Professional office, a doctor.
Dentist, I can see a dentist.
Yeah, dentist and a doctor, general
That's
practitioner.
why I say CPA.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a vet, maybe. We just don't want, I've heard so many people say they don't want to have it compete with downtown Jamestown, and I think, again, that might relate to where it's located. And that's a tough one to call, because if we want them to participate in Jamestown, and Jamestown has room for more development too. This isn't the only development. And so do we want to have two commercial areas? One gets a little stronger because it's got more people there and they're cohesive versus Jamestown proper the way it is now. That's that's a thought. I just don't know how to solve that.
Well, I think if you have that many people moving in, it's not gonna, the demand, you'll have enough demand to support both.
Yeah, because if you don't have some at both places, one side's gonna be overrun.
Yeah.
We won't be able to get into our restaurants we like.
Good.
We'll go to their some, they'll come to our some, and eventually we'll just all start to flow.
All right, what else needs to be on this list?
If you're adding kids, how about daycare?
Yes.
There are not many daycare options in Jamestown, at least, especially full day. And when I say full day, I mean like 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. full day.
What else?
Good idea.
Yoga studio.
Yeah.
Don't laugh at yoga studio. Did you see Jason laughing at yoga
There's
studio?
actually one in.
I'm dead serious about a yoga
Pencil
studio.
U is great.
These masks
Yes.
come in handy.
I'll do a plug.
They can't contain, no.
I'll do a
that's- I-
Or maybe we don't have to specify yoga, but a fitness.
Yeah, fitness. That's what I meant by just.
Well, we got a lot of
fitness
fitness in
studio.
Jamestown too.
What's that?
We have a lot of fitness places in Jamestown.
There you go. I will get fit, don't I?
I think we've talked about essentially, and this goes along with restaurants, like a brewery.
Yeah.
Brew
Wine
pub,
shop,
brew pub. I mean, I don't want to,
wine bar. I've heard a lot about people for years saying, we wish there was a wine bar in Jamestown.
I would
What a
love-
bike-
Potent Potables has great wine.
how about
I'll
a bike?
plug Popos.
Bike shop would be great.
Yeah, a bike shop, yeah.
Bike shop?
Yep, biker.
Not motorcycle,
Not
like
No.
two-wheel, ride your bike.
motorcycle.
Nothing against motorcycles, they're just very loud. And you need someplace to park all of them.
Up and down Main Street. God.
What else? Pretty good list.
That's a good list.
That's substantial.
Ice cream, like, I mean, that's a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like,
You
can we
said that
please,
first.
please have some ice cream?
Although the Blue House Bakery has ice cream.
But they're not open on Sundays.
No, I know.
No, they're not.
Always when I buy.
And also, they're not serving ice cream anymore for the rest of the year. I
Oh, is that-
inquired about that on Saturday. Apparently, it's been getting freezer burned because there hasn't been enough demand, but
I bought one.
Surprised nobody said coffee shop, but you know.
Well, we
Oh.
Well, yeah.
got a coffee shop
Where?
and bakery.
Oh, okay.
All right. What, do add those?
She's my friend. I'm gonna keep supporting her.
I felt like a coffee shop would come in with those small shops.
yeah, or restaurants, yeah.
I agree. I think that's.
Yeah,
Just
I don't-
don't-
we don't finally
That was a
get
lot of gravel there.
Yeah,
detail there.
we gotta stay general.
Okay, any other biggies? All right, do we go back to our list of questions? We have one, density, anything else?
Do we want to talk about location of the commercial district?
Didn't we talk
Have
about
we,
Well, I think
We talked
that's,
about
again, I
being
think
the
that's something
center.
he's going to come back and summarize what we've all talked about. I think we're trying to get, what were the questions we still had to be able to talk about those things. So,
We
Like-
wanted, Steve mentioned maybe elevations of the backs.
right,
Some of the
right.
buildings. Could these houses even fit on the lots as
Mm-hmm.
they're laid out? I would like more information on the age targeted housing. If
Mhm,
this is truly, if it would be a literal like 55 and up area, or if it's just homes that would be appropriate for aging in place, because that will affect, I know there's a lot of concerns about schools too, but if this is truly, a not just age appropriate, but, an age targeted housing area, then, that takes the school question out at least of those homes.
Mhm, yeah, absolutely.
And that area could be a lot bigger than you expect it to be.
Right.
This could be a real drawing
Yeah.
to age targeted.
Well, and that's what I'm hoping, because I was just thinking, I wonder what everybody sees as a positive of this potential development. Because to me, the biggest thing is that age targeted housing, we seriously have so little
Yeah.
appropriate age in place housing in the town, and we lose people because they downsize and go somewhere else. So I agree. I think there could be more of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And I will say, when I came up with those estimates on the projection for number of school kids added, I did not include the age targeted housing in that projection. I just left those units out totally when I did my calculation.
Sarah, our smart friends in Raleigh or have been told that we are expecting of the 74.4 million boomers, 6% are moving to North Carolina.
Ooh,
So go find most of you know that that's what I teach. Go find a cat's house in the triad. They're staying on the market 3 days. So it is so hot, it is scary hot, and will be for the next 17 years.
Wow. Well, good.
Am I being subtle here?
Can I get a retirement out of this career yet?
Can I clarify that the density question is, we specifically wanted like density without the green space.
Yeah.
That was
Right.
like the number that we were looking for.
Yeah, I've got that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know I had a question about, because it came up in the materials you presented, and it's something certainly, at least not that I know of anyone here has expertise in, was that pipeline that goes through the property and what that could mean for if there's no egress without crossing that pipeline,
Right.
what that could mean in terms of safety. I'm trying to remember all these things we
Yeah,
talked
that's a
about.
good question. That's
Yeah,
right.
that is good.
You don't want to get hemmed in on the backside of that.
right,
And they have a leak or a fire.
right. And maybe it's not an issue at all, but again, I don't know if any of us have the
Just a question.
expertise to say either way, so.
Well, we enjoy having the planes flow over every day.
Oh,
There was a good question, I think, from Benchmark that we have not brought up of, and I've tried to visualize it when I'm running over in that area. And it was like accessing the development from like the area in Fox Hollow, maybe? I don't know where that is.
And where?
The Pet Cemetery,
Fox Hollow,
folks? I don't know what
Oh,
that is.
Fox Hollow, yeah. Fox Hollow is a continuation of Adams Farm, but just on our side of Mackey Road. And it's in the county. It's not in Jamestown. I guess we service the sewer for Fox Hollow, don't we?
It's in a region, Jay.
Okay.
And I don't know about the topography and everything. I don't know that there's any way to connect them together, but
So that maybe goes back to elevations, views, topography, ways of connecting some of maybe the inner roads or the different tracks and neighborhoods.
I have a question. I keep going back to density. Maybe I need that sign target on my forehead, but do we have the exact number of acres that are developable? So we would be able to say so many units per acre, not the whole bit, but the acres that can be developed on. And that would give us a better idea.
Buildable
of
acres.
what is it?
yeah.
Yeah,
Buildable acres.
buildable. Okay, that's
Yeah,
a,
we can
Thank
subtract
you.
that. That can be derived.
I think that would narrow down our ability to deal with the density if we knew the buildable acres versus anything else.
Right. And I've got that in the notes. Yep.
And they do have, within here, the different sections and the amount of units per acre they're asking for within each section. That's what I've found more helpful, because honestly, whether you take or leave the buildable parts, I mean, these are the parts they're building on. So they give you right there how many units per acre they would like. So I don't know. I've sort of been thinking of it as little like neighborhood pieces rather than getting us caught up in the whole, other areas. Because really, I mean, if they crammed a bunch of houses together, that, when I say they, I mean anyone. If a bunch of houses are crammed together in one small space, even if there's tons of green space or not, it's the same feel once you're in there, so.
Maybe a combination of looking at it both ways.
We can do that.
I had a question about the capacity for our sewer water, but I've addressed that separately, and I don't need further explanation, but I don't know if others would want it, and I'm not competent enough to give the explanation, but I just know that I'm not concerned about it, so any further, and so don't need to hear about it anymore.
Was there a question about like waste removal, waste pickup, and how that might affect the residents in this development and the town of Jamestown residents?
Yeah, we did, that's right, we did have a question about, would services diminish for other folks in the town who already live here if this development is developed? And I think one thing that had come up was the trash days, and now maybe if that's the only service that's affected, it may not be an issue. Some people may be fine with one trash pickup day a week. I know I personally am, that's what I always have had before I lived in Jamestown. But some people may really not like that. But is that the only service that could potentially be affected with this development? Because if we're getting more tax revenue, we shouldn't be seeing a reduction in services. So that was a question I had. That's correct.
And then
Thank you for remembering.
thinking back. And I also have a question about, so the annexation, I think, if I read the news correctly, this has been annexed. Did I misread that in the Jamestown News? That's the way that the article made it sound, that the,
Just trust what you are voting on.
Okay, great.
Hearing here.
okay, great. Just kidding.
And there's some questions in the notes as well, in addition to these, and some of them are the same.
Yeah, so I guess my hope would be for these questions, if we get a list of these questions, and maybe Jason, when you tie this in a pretty bow for us, that these questions will be in there, and then we can have the folks who need to be here to answer those questions. Like I know we asked for the traffic person to come back, since that was such a dense text that was very technical. We needed some layperson terms on that. Since we've now had a chance to read it, because when he was here previously, we had got it that day, and it was over 600 pages long. So I think we want the arborist to come back. We had asked about I think the fire department's going to give us a report. It's sounding like there's potential for that the fire department is feeling like they're maxing out their space here in town and wanting a new fire department, so, or new physical, building and such. So if that is true, I'd like to hear more about that, if it's going to affect this development. I'm trying to think if we asked anyone else to come. I don't think so.
How about the law enforcement, Leo's sheriff? We talked with the sheriff. I'm assuming that will be in the sheriff's or state police. Who will have jurisdiction? Sheriff?
Sheriff's Department, yeah.
But they have.
Do you have specific questions for the sheriff?
No, do
Or
they
you
have
just want to hear in
sufficient-
general?
Are they prepared to have sufficient coverage?
Okay.
It's a good question.
And we're blessed in Cedarwood. If you call, you have the state police as well as deputies show up. So it's
I think we need to know too, if the town is prepared to handle the garbage.
Yeah, I think that goes with the services that we're talking about. Our service level is going to be the same. Yeah,
I didn't hear that.
that's okay. It's late. We're getting tired. I'm getting tired.
Y'all are muffled.
I know.
I think we're losing oxygen to our brain.
Yeah.
Thanks for fading.
That's my excuse. I'm standing by.
But yeah, it'd be nice to have those folks come. So if we could get these ahead of time before our next meeting, and so then we'll know to have the right people at the next meeting, I think that would be helpful. Do you all think? I kind of hoped, I guess I was optimistic, I kind of hoped that we would be able to go into public comment at the next meeting, but I don't think we're going to be able to do that at the next meeting. I don't know what you all are feeling.
I don't think we're ready.
Yeah, so, but I'd like us to, try to stay on track here. So I'm thinking maybe for the next meeting, and this is nothing's set in stone, just trying to lay out, a tentative plan for the next meeting after and actually, Jason, if you could email me directly your report, that would be great.
Sure.
if you don't have my email already, I can get it to you. And so at the next meeting, tease out the stuff that Jason's going to send us, try to come up with our actual recommendations, and then try to think about when the developer will be prepared to come back and say, here's what we propose now that we've heard all of this. I'm guessing that they've already done a lot based on the conversations we've had. That's a total guess on my part. So I'm not sure how needed like our formal recommendations are, but it still would be helpful to have them, I think. So, so that we at least have them for the record. And so I'm thinking that maybe next meeting, we could have those recommendations, try to get them as close to finalized as we can get, and then assess from the developer when they will be ready to come present. And then we can think about public comment. How's that sound to folks?
Sounds good.
Okay, all right. Are there other issues to talk about tonight before we talk about our next meeting?
I guess my last question would be, so we're gonna have, our recommendations, the developer revise their plan, and then public comment. Would there be an opportunity for further revisement of the plan from the developer after the public comment? Because I think that's what
Yeah.
people in the area are really.
Oh,
concerned about.
absolutely.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons too, that I've been really encouraging during these meetings for people to reach out to us now so that they don't have to wait till public comment to incorporate some of the things that people in the community, besides, those of us sitting at this table have, so that we don't have to wait till, we don't have, okay, now we have to revise the plan again because based on, and not that it's not possible, but just the more information we have sooner, I think the better. So, but yeah, I think certainly we can ask for more revisions and then, we're just recommending. This is a long process to recommend, and then the town council will certainly have their recommendations and have final say, so.
Perfect.
Good? Okay, let's talk about the next meeting. Katie, does it have to be 2 weeks out?
It doesn't have to be 2 weeks out, it's up to you guys, it's kind of, you have to think about if he's gonna have enough time to summarize
Yeah.
everything
And get people here and
and
stuff.
keep the process moving.
Yeah,
I think 2 weeks is good. It gives you a little time to hear from people or talk to people. I mean, I get sometimes 2 calls from the same person in one day.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
It's good.
okay. I was thinking potentially a week, but if people want 2 weeks, that's fine.
I think we probably need to.
Okay, that's fine. That is fine.
When does early voting start?
So, well, that's what I was gonna say. So, the one in 2 weeks would be the 14th.
October 12th.
12th. I keep thinking it's the 14th. And that's our regularly scheduled meeting, correct, Katie?
Yes.
Okay. And so that, because early voting would be starting and they need to set up, because I think it starts the 14th, is it the 15th, early voting? So we would have to be in council chambers for the next meeting. And as you all know, that's a tighter situation in terms of social distancing. So we will keep that in mind. Yeah. So does that sound good? The 12th at 6 p.m.
Okay.
in council chambers? Okay, then we need a motion for someone make a motion to continue the public hearing to October 12th at 6 p.m. in the council chambers without further advertisement.
I'd like to make a motion that we move this meeting to October the
12th.
12th, yep,
in the council chambers
At 6
without
p.m.
public comment.
at 6 p.m. without further advertisement.
Yeah, without,
I
I'll
second.
second.
Okay, thank you. Ed made the motion. Sherry, did you second it? Yes. Thank you. This is just all those in favor, right? I don't know why I forget every time. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Okay, we will meet then. And then, Katie, is there any public comment? Is that the next thing?
Nobody signed up for public comment today.
Okay. And so then we need a motion to adjourn, right?
I will
Motion
make,
made.
seconded.
Okay, so Steve made the motion and Kara
No,
seconded.
that's fine.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. All right, I'll see you in 2 weeks in the council chambers.